These companies support the Thom Hartmann Program. They are Gabi.com. Gabi takes the pain out of shopping for insurance. More info at Gabi.com/Thom. Teeth, Smarter Pet Dental Help. More info at teethhealth.com, code Thom. HelloFresh, delivering fresh ingredients and mouthwatering recipes. More info at hellofresh.com, code Thom. Bowl and Branch, crafted for the common good. More information at bowlandbranch.com, code Thom. ExpressVPN, the VPN that just works. More info at expressvpn.com/Thom. And CB Distillery, CBD for sleeping. More info at cbdistillery.com, code Thom.
For the Thom Hartmann Book Club today, it's Waking the Witch, Reflections on Women, Magic, and Power by Pam Grossman. This is from the introduction. Witches have always walked among us, populating societies and storyscapes across the globe for thousands of years. From Circe to Hermione, from Morgan Le Fay to Marie Laveau, the witch has long existed in the tales we tell about ladies with strange powers who can harm or heal. And although people of all genders have been considered witches, it's a word that is now usually associated with women. Throughout most of history, she has someone to fear, an uncanny other who threatens our safety or manipulates reality for her own mercurial purposes. She's a pariah, a persona non grata, a boogie woman to defeat and discard. Although she's often been deemed a destructive entity, in actuality, a witchy woman has historically been far more susceptible to attack than an inflictor of violence herself. As with other terrifying outsiders, she occupies a paradoxical role in cultural consciousness as both vicious aggressor and vulnerable prey. Over the past 150 years or so, however, the witch has done another magic trick by turning from a fright into a figure of inspiration. She is now as likely to be the heroine of your favorite TV show as she is its villain. She might show up in the form of your Wiccan co-worker or the beloved musician who gives off a sorceress vibe in videos or on stage. There's also a chance that she is you, and that witch is an identity you've taken upon yourself for any number of reasons, heartfelt or flippant, public or private. Today, more women than ever are choosing the way of the witch, whether literally or symbolically. They're floating down catwalks and sidewalks in gauzy black clothing and adorning themselves with Pinterest-worthy pentagrams and crystals. They're filling up movie theaters to watch witchy films and gathering in back rooms and backyards to do rituals, consult tarot cards, and set life-altering intentions. They're marching in the streets with Hex the Patriarchy placards and casting spells each month to try to constrain the commander-in-chief. Year after year, articles keep proclaiming it's the season of the witch, as journalists try to wrap their heads around the mushrooming witch trend. And all of this begs the question, why? Why do witches matter? Why are they seemingly everywhere right now? What exactly are they? And why the hell won't they go away? I get asked such things over and over, and you would think that after a lifetime of studying and writing about witches, as well as hosting a witch-themed podcast and being a practitioner of witchcraft myself, my answers would be succinct. In fact, I find that the more I work with the witch, the more complex she becomes. Hers is a slippery spirit. Try to pin her down and she'll only recede further into the dark, deep wood. I do know this for sure, though. Show me your witches, and I'll show you your feelings about women. The fact that the resurgence of feminism and the popularity of the witch are ascending at the same time is no coincidence. The two are reflections of each other. That said, this current witch wave is nothing new. I was a teen in the 1990s, the decade that brought us such pop culture as Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Charmed, and The Craft. Not to mention Riot Girls and third-wave feminists who taught me that female power could come in a variety of colors and sexualities. I learned that women could lead a revolution while wearing lipstick and combat boots, and sometimes even a cloak. But my own witchly awakening came at an even earlier age. Morganville, New Jersey, where I was raised, was a solidly suburban town, but it retained enough natural land features back then to still feel a little bit scruffy in spots. We had a small patch of woods in our backyard that abutted a horse farm, and the two were separated by a wisp of running water that we could cross via a plank of wood. When we were little, my older sister Emily and I would sometimes venture to the other side where we could feed the horses, an act that still scares me to this day, and pick fistfuls of clover. But the majority of our time was spent on our side of the stream, threading ourselves through the thicket of trees that served as our personal forest. In one corner of the yard, a giant puddle would form whenever it rained, surrounded by a border of ferns. We called this spot our magical place. That it would vanish and then reappear only added to its mystery. It was a portal to the unknown. These woods are where I first remember doing magic, entering that state of deep play where imaginative action becomes reality. I would spend hours out there creating rituals with rocks and sticks, drawing secret symbols in the dirt, losing all track of time. It was a space that felt holy and wild, yet still strangely safe. As we age, we're supposed to stop filling our heads with such nonsense. Unicorns are to be traded in for Barbie dolls, though both are mythical creatures to be sure. We lose our tooth fairies, walk away from our wizards. Dragons get slain on the altar of our youth. Most kids grow out of their magic phase. I grew further into mine. My grandma Trudy was a librarian at the West Long Branch Library, which meant I got to spend many a long afternoon lurking between the 001.9 and 135 Dewey Decimal sections, reading about Bigfoot and dream interpretation and Nostradamus.
This
Waking the Witch
is
by
the Thom Hartmann Program.
My friends, patriots, lovers of democracy, truth, and justice, believers in peace, freedom, and the American way. And happy Friday. TGIF, Shabbat Shalom, Juma Mubarak, whatever it may be for you. It is a beautiful Friday, absolutely beautiful sunny Friday here in Portland. Got kind of cold last night. It was 32 this morning when we got up, but it's going to get up to 60. And I got my appointment for my vaccine, which is coming up in about a week and a half. It's, a week from Sunday. I will get my first shot. Louise got her first shot 2 days ago. So we are hopeful. Sean is in line to get a shot. We got to figure out how to get Nate vaccinated. And I am so looking forward to the day that we can all get back in the studio. Joe Biden gave a speech last night. It was absolutely brilliant. I thought it was up there with some of FDR's fireside chats in terms of his ability to connect with the American people. Obama had soaring rhetoric. Bill Clinton did great wonky things, great wonky speeches. Jimmy Carter, there was substance to what he said, but he just, and no Republican president has ever kind of brought empathy, right? Brought heart to anything. So it was just extraordinary. And I think that we're at the end of an era. And I want to talk about that in just a second. But first, also to tell you that it is Anything Goes Friday. So whatever you want to talk about, we can talk about. Whatever's been gurgling around in your brain for the week. Today is the day. And also, the second hour of our program, the entire hour, we're going to do a national town hall meeting with California's Congressman Khanna. He represents the 17th District of California in the U.S. House of Representatives. He's a vice chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, and he will be taking your calls for the entire hour in the second hour of our program. So that's what's up. The piece that I published this morning over at HartmannReport.com, there are two Hartmann reports. There's the free podcast, which you can find, wherever you find podcasts, and then there's the daily, my daily writing. Every morning I get up really early, and sometimes I do a little bit of work on it, the night before. But and we bang out this. I write up this piece that is typically the same thing as my opening rant or my first hour, and we post it at HartmannReport.com. You can get that right in your mailbox for free. And there will be eventually some a little other content that we'll add to it that there may be a charge for, but everything is free right now, and will continue to be most all of it will continue to be free forever. So that's at HartmannReport.com. And the piece that I published today, I think it really reflects the message that I've been inching towards in my conversations with you, which is that but I haven't just laid it out, and I'm going to do that right now, and then I'll pick up your phone calls for the rest of the hour. And that is that we are at the end of an era. Peter Turchin published a really provocative piece about a decade ago, 10 years ago, in Nature magazine. And in that piece, he pointed out that politics tends to go in roughly 50-year cycles. Sometimes they're as short as 40 years, sometimes they go as long as 60 years, but typically the sweet spot is 50 years. And he pointed out that 1971, well, he didn't point it out, he just referenced that period of time. I pointed out in my piece over at HartmannReport.com that 1971 was when the Powell Memo was written. It was when the entire right mobilized. Within 4 or 5 years of that, you had the Federalist Society created, the Heritage Foundation created, the Charles Koch Foundation became the Cato Institute. You had state policy networks started growing in every single state. We now have a billionaire-owned and driven political infrastructure with all of these groups that is larger than the Republican Party itself. So I had a great conversation last night with Dean Obeidallah on his show here on Sirius XM, and we were talking about this and just laying this out. Like, why do Republicans, for example, the tax cut that Trump pushed through back in 2017 had 25% approval among the American public, 25% according to Quinnipiac. And every Republican voted for it. This American Relief Act, which is what Biden is calling it now, has 65% approval, more or less, across the board. And even a majority of Republicans approve of it. It depends on which study you're looking at and when it was done, because Fox News has been pounding on it how horrible it is for, a couple of weeks now. So, they are capable of shifting opinions. But the bottom line is it's very, very popular, and yet every Republican voted against it. And you ask why? Well, because it's not the Republicans who control the Republican Party. It's a handful of right-wing, cranky right-wing billionaires who put their, who use their money to basically buy politics. And I think their day has come to an end. I think this 50-year cycle, since 1971 to 2021, that's 50 years. Or from Reagan to today, that's 40 years. Reagan became president in January of 1981. And if you look at those cycles, I think that I'm going out on a limb here, but I really believe that you and I will be having this conversation a year, 2 years, 3 years, certainly 4 or 5 years down the road, looking back and saying the American Recovery Act and Joe Biden's speech, and I get it, Joe Biden is no Bernie Sanders, but nonetheless, we are going to be looking back at this moment and saying the American Recovery Act and Joe Biden's speech marked the beginning of the turn. The beginning of the end of the era of Reaganomics. And I point out in my piece over at HartmannReport.com that the thing that really brought it to a head was the Trump presidency. He was so, and the vaccine, for example, is emblematic of that. While the New York Times, as Eric Bullock points out, the New York Times is saying, their headline, Biden got the vaccine rollout humming with Trump's help. Well, no, he got it running over Trump's objections, over Trump's obstruction. Trump gave an absolute screaming disaster to Joe Biden. I mean, the Wall Street Journal, this is back in December. Pfizer had its 100 million dose goal in place until mid-November when it became clear the supply chain hurdles were too great for an end-of-the-year timeline. Did Trump do anything? No, he went playing golf. What Biden has done is he's used the Defense Production Act to fill in that supply chain, to give these companies the raw materials that they need and to help people who are administering shots with gloves and vials and the vials are for the manufacturers, syringes, things like that. Trump did none of that. Instead he kept telling us how wonderful everything is and the vaccine is going to go away any minute. And you'll recall on January 15th, when Trump still had 5 days in office, and he and Jared Kushner had been saying that there was this huge national stockpile of vaccines. And our governor, Kate Brown, here in Oregon, tweeted on January 15th of this year, quote, last night I received disturbing news confirmed to me directly by General Perna of Operation Warp Speed. States will not be receiving increased shipments of vaccines from the national stockpile next week because there is no Federal Reserve of doses. There wasn't even a real federal stockpile. Trump was grifting again. Our governor, Kate Brown, she said, I'm demanding answers from the Trump administration. This was later that day. I am shocked and appalled that they would have set an expectation on which they could not deliver with such grave consequences. This is a deception on a national scale. Oregon seniors, teachers, all of us were depending on the promise of Oregon's share. So, the grift, I think, is what brought it to a head. But I really believe that this 40-year era of Reaganomics has come to an end. There's still a lot of thrashing and, dying going on, and there's a few hangers-on like Joe Manchin on the Democratic side. But I think that even Manchin's starting to come around. So you think I'm crazy, or you think I'm right?
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
I go into a little more depth over, the piece over at HartmannReport.com. Anyhow, we'll be picking up your calls right after this. Stick around. And welcome back, Cliff in Santa Clarita, California. Hey, Cliff, what's on your mind today?
I'm doing good, Tom, but I'll get better.
Great.
Hey, I agree with you when you were talking about the CBD Alzheimer research yesterday. It really is fascinating and encouraging. That, along with the psilocybin research they're doing into depression and anxiety, both of those are really encouraging.
I agree.
Okay, can't believe it's been 10 years since Fukushima, but ever since that happened, Tom, I was concerned about the long-term effects. And when I heard about that irradiated water pouring into the ocean nonstop, my thought went to the fish being infected, the tuna, the halibut, the big fish that gets served in sushi restaurants. Because I remember you telling us years ago that they either stopped testing or they weren't testing these fish at all. So I was wondering if that's still the case. And if there's been any cases like connections between the fish, let's say from the Pacific Ocean, and people getting infected or poisoned, on the West Coast or anything. Because there's hundreds and hundreds of sushi restaurants out here, man.
Yeah, no, I get it. I have not seen any authoritative reporting on that. It may be that I'm looking in the wrong places. But that's a really great question, Cliff. This is something I'll ask Sean to reach out to Food and Water Watch and to Kevin Camps and ask them specifically, do we have any evidence of fish carrying radiation being found in the United States, or have we simply stopped looking? Because I don't know the answer to your question, but it's an excellent question, Cliff. And thank you for asking it. You've got it on my radar. And hopefully in the next couple of days or in the next week or so, we can have a guest on who can address your concern, because I think it's a big deal. Charles in Portland, Oregon. Hey, Charles, thanks for listening to X-Ray FM. What's up?
Tom, good morning from gorgeous Portland, Oregon. What a spectacular
Isn't it a beautiful
day.
morning?
It is absolutely stunning. But, hey, let me see if I can't find you something to worry about here, because I think if you're right about this 40-year cycle, probably one of the reasons that the right has failed, or the cycle is coming to an end, is they're building on a bad assumption. You were talking about Hobbes and Locke and Rousseau and how they assume that there's good people or evil people inherently. But
Right.
I want to propose that people are inherently self-interested. That it's not a question of
that is
going into
that kind of sets aside the discussion of good or evil, but because self-interest is, I mean, for example, if you see your child in trouble, you want to help your child, but that's instinctual. I mean, that is not just helping your child, that's also helping yourself.
Yeah, it's a broader sense of self-interest. I mean, an infant is self-interested. They're only caring about their food and basic needs and not even conceptualizing those. But then as they grow, they begin to broaden that self-interest and understand how their self-interest is tied up with others. And if we as the left assume people are good as opposed to being evil, then we're going to build a system that has the inherent fault built into it just as the right does. If we assume people are self-interested and we can work with that, then we can find a system that works for everybody going forward.
I get it, Charles. For some reason, the music came in at full volume, and I kind of missed some parts of what you were saying, but I totally get it. And I think that's how Biden is selling it, is this is going to be good for all of us. This is going to be good for you and all the people around. Thank you, Charles. That was a great one. We'll be right back. Hey, my new book is out. The Hidden History of American Oligarchy, Reclaiming Our Democracy from the Ruling Class. Want to know more? The links are all over at thomhartmann.com. So David Perry over at medium.com put together a list of 38 reasons to investigate the Trump administration. Everything from the Russian influence over the 2016 election, to the Trump family's collusion with Russia, to Ivanka Trump's trademarks, to federal spending at Trump properties, to the civilians killed by Trump's drone strikes, to the Trump administration's role in turning the United States into the global epicenter for the COVID-19 pandemic. Yes, we are. Yes, it's grim. Their decision to sideline the CDC, politicizing mask wearing just to try to get himself reelected, the number of people who died because the White House kept PPE from blue states, from Democratic-led states, the contents of the Trump documents that Trump refused to release to the House Judiciary Committee and other committees, all the people who wouldn't speak, at all, ignoring subpoenas, violations of the Hatch Act, the deportation of COVID-positive immigrant families, illegal altering of records. Anyhow, there's a whole list. It's over at thomhartmann.com. Check it out. And welcome back. Anything Goes Friday. And Ed in Des Moines, Iowa. Hey, Ed, what's up?
Hey, Tom. If I can do a quick aside on that person that called about Fukushima, I think you'd see a secondary marker of an uptick in thyroid cancer if we were eating dangerous amounts of irradiated fish. But
I think you're probably right, but there might be as much as a 10, 15-year late. And of course, we're 10 years out now. So that latency period, we should have fulfilled it by now, right?
So, right. The reason for my call was the other day, something occurred to me that seemed so patently obvious that I was embarrassed it took me this long to figure it out. You know how Trump always downplayed the coronavirus and said you don't need to wear a mask, it's going to be gone in a month or two, all's well with the world? And you wonder, why does he do that? Well, he owns an awful lot of hotels, golf courses, and other places that depend on a flow of money coming in that would be shut off if he told people to stay home and everything that a reasonable person would say. So I think he just didn't want to hamper his inflow of cash.
I think you may well be right, Ed. You know, because if he was to acknowledge masks, he would also have to acknowledge the, don't go into congregate settings, don't go into restaurants. I'm not sure about golf courses. They may be a whole lot safer.
I know, but I don't know what all
ahead.
he owns, but I'm just saying that it would hamper his inflow of cash.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good piece of it. I think there's also this toxic masculinity thing of, I'm macho and I'm not afraid of these things. And I just saw a poll yesterday that showed that 49% of white GOP voters, white Republican voters, say they're not going to get a vaccine. I mean, that's the largest group in America right now that are, quote, vaccine reluctant. And, again, part of it is that they're listening to disinformation. We know now that the Russian and Saudi and Iraq and Iranian and apparently even now South Korean or North Korean trolls on the internet, in addition, the message that they principally pushed out in 2016, largely to Democratic voters on Twitter and on Facebook and et cetera, was the two parties are the same. Why bother voting? And a lot of Democrats took that to heart. Democratic voters in particularly in 5 states, in the swing states, were down significantly. Mark Pocan has talked about this on this program. And we all just thought that was because Hillary ran a terrible campaign. Turns out it was this massive campaign to discourage Democrats from voting by saying, it won't matter. Both parties are the same. Why bother? The new message that's coming out of that same group of trolls is, look out, this vaccine might be dangerous. And that message is starting to be amplified in right-wing media. If you go over to thewriting.com, RIGHTING.com, you can see the headlines and the stories. I included one of them in my piece in today's Hartmann report that, in fact, I quoted a guy, or maybe it was yesterday's Hartmann report. Yeah, it was yesterday's. And I quoted at length this guy who was like, evolutionists prepared me for viruses. I don't need, we don't need no stinking vaccines. And so, now we're in kind of phase 2 of this. And again, if you look at who was opposed to the rescue bill and who wants the country opened immediately and supports people like Greg Abbott, the American Chamber of Commerce is right at the top of that list. The organization that represents the biggest businesses in America and the billionaires. And so, yeah, exactly. There you go. Thank you very much for the call, Ed. Great point. Lewis in Asheville, North Carolina. Hey, Lewis, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom. Good afternoon. I'm calling regarding the fate of us baby boomers in nursing homes as we age. My mother's 95, lives in a nursing home. Costs about $6,800 a month. She's a retired union teacher. My father had a pension, so she's living off of that. Our generation is not going to be able to do that, Tom. We're in trouble.
Because?
How are we going to? I don't have $6,800 a month when I retire to support me living in a nursing home.
Yeah, you're right. When my dad retired, he had his house paid off. He had a pension and the Social Security that you could actually live well on, and and the health insurance that he had that carried into his retirement and covered him and my mom, until they died. And, with Republicans gutting the unions in the United, all of that was stuff that my dad had participated in negotiating on behalf of the 13 guys who worked in that union shop, Lansing Tool and Die, company. The unions are still around, at least the machinists union that he was, in, are still around. But the ability to negotiate those kind of contracts is really has been under fire and has been destroyed. Yeah, it's going to be a tough one, Lewis. And the generation behind us is going to have it even worse because, Reaganomics is really biting. And I think this also contributes to why I believe that I'm right, that the era of Reaganomics is ending and we are moving into a new LBJ Great Society or FDR New Deal moment. I really believe, not moment, movement, a two-generation at least movement. Lewis, thank you for the call. I really believe that I'm right on this. And I'm not getting a lot of pushback, but we'll see as the day goes on. Back with your calls.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
Anything Goes Friday here on the Thom Hartmann Program. Fair and only slightly unbalanced. We've got great news
A group of free speech donors have gotten together and joined with Andrew in San Diego to double your donation today only, up to $5,000. So whatever you give up to $5,000 will be doubled today, will be matched. It's great news. It's the last day of the Grow Free Speech TV Challenge. And this group of frontline donors, frontline funders, have joined Andrew in San Diego to sweeten the deal. Tracy in New York, Steve in Virginia, John and Diane in Colorado are standing by to match any donation today made up to $5,000. That means if you're a loyal, longtime donor, you can double your impact today. And if you've never given before, you can help unlock this week's $5,000 challenge and double your first donation. Andrew, by the way, had said that, if we could just add 300 donors this week, this is how hard it is to get new people in, right? Please help. If you've never donated to Free Speech TV before, we need your help. We need Free Speech TV needs your help. It is so vital. Free Speech TV is such an important part of the media landscape. Probably the majority of calls that you hear on my show every day are coming from Free Speech TV viewers, certainly half of them. Free Speech TV has a huge audience, and sadly, most people who watch Free Speech TV, probably 98%, and those kind of numbers, by the way, hold for other nonprofit media, sadly, never contribute to the program, never contribute to the network, rather. And we need your help. Free Speech TV needs your help. This has been, as I mentioned yesterday, it's been a really tough year for charities right across the board. And I got an email just about an hour ago from a nonprofit that I've given money to in the past. It's an economic policy group that does really good in-depth studies. And they said that, the last 12 months have been the worst in the 15, 16 years that they've been in the business of doing this work. And of course, it's because everybody was just pouring everything they had into trying to save democracy from this crazed orange man that we had in the White House. And his merry band of Trumpsters and crazed Republicans. And I totally get that. I was one of those people who was sending money in to help get Joe Biden elected and to help some of the Democratic candidates and to help some of the some of the groups like Stacey Abrams' group, Fair Fight and things. And those needs are still there, sadly. And there's another election coming next year, and that's going to start in probably 6-8 months. You're going to start seeing that crank up. But what it has done is it has just sucked so much money out of the donation sphere, as it were, that Free Speech TV has been really behind for the last year, and we're really behind right now. So I'm asking you, if you get value from this program, if the things that I say, if the work that Louise and I do, and Sean and Nate and Chase, and there's a bunch of us here collectively who work on this show every day, and if the work that we do is of value to you, you don't need to send a penny to us. We'll keep doing this and doing what we're doing, but if you want to continue watching it, Free Speech TV needs to stay in business. We need to keep this network going. We need to grow this network, in fact. So, your contribution today is doubled. If you're a new donor, you can help us unlock that $5,000 from Andrew. And the best thing you can do, in addition to making a donation today, is say, oh, and by the way, every month take $3 off my, credit card, $5, $8, $12, whatever, what might be a cup of coffee, right? Or a burger, whatever, if you eat burgers every week. But, help out, please, because those regular monthly contributions really help Free Speech TV. With a $20 gift, you have your choice of the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker or the Free Speech TV Wildflower Seed Pack. With a $50 gift, you have your choice of the Free Speech TV webcam cover or the new Free Speech TV tote bag. With a $75 gift, you get the Thom Hartmann mug, the official Thom Hartmann Program mug, or the Free Speech TV, the official Free Speech TV hat. With $100, you can get 2 Free Speech TV face masks, which are great to double mask over, a regular surgical mask or N95 mask, so that it looks nice and works better. With a $120 gift, there's the Grow Social Change box, the wildflower seed pack, the windowsill herb garden, the new tote bag, the sunglasses, or the Ask Me About Free Speech TV t-shirt, or my newest book, The Hidden History of American Oligarchy, Reclaiming Our Democracy from the Rich, basically, is the subtitle. And autographed by the author, by the way. I signed a bunch of book plates yesterday and shipped them off to Free Speech TV for these. With a $240 gift, there's the virtual meet and greet where we all meet on a Zoom call, and it's typically, half a dozen to a dozen people. And we do one every month, or the Free Speech TV book set, my book on monopolies, my book on oligarchy. With a $360 gift, there's the University Spring box with the bumper stickers, the seeds, the herb garden, the tote bag, the hat, the sunglasses, and the oligarchy book. And with $1,000, get in line to come to Portland and hang out with us in our studio. Bottom line, though, we need your help, and we need it now. So please call right now, 877-378-8669. Make your contribution and sign up for a regular monthly gift. Thank you. This week on The Science Revolution is Neil deGrasse Tyson. He's here about his new book, Cosmic Queries, Star Talk's guide to who we are, how we got here, and where we're going. We'll be talking about what is life on Earth and in the universe? How did the universe get to be this way and not some other way? What is the universe made of? Plus, we get into how will the Earth end? Doomsday volcanoes, meteors, the death of the sun, and the collision of galaxies? So tune in for this in-depth conversation with Neil deGrasse Tyson on The Science Revolution, wherever fine podcasts are available. And welcome back. 34 minutes past the hour. Thom Hartmann here with you. It's Anything Goes Friday, although our second hour, the entire hour, will be Congressman Ro Khanna of the Vice Chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, taking your calls for the hour, the Congressman from California. Deborah in Denver, Colorado. Hey, Deborah, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom. I'm watching you on YouTube, and I want to present a case to you, and I want to know what you think about it, what you think the pros and cons are. And this is my argument. I think that if anybody could pull this off, it would be Joe Biden. What do you think about if Joe Biden were to work with Iran on moving them towards becoming an ally? What that would serve is peace between Israel and Iran, maybe more stability in Iraq with more stability concerning Saudi Arabia, maybe peace with Saudi Arabia, and maybe peace in Syria. And Lord knows that they've showed great restraint. They kept up their part of the bargain even after they were pressed and pressured. And, I think that they've shown great restraint. And I think that the people have an appreciation of America. It's not really the people. I mean, we love their people too, I think. Most people I know. I think that I would like to see more partnership with Iran. I think that we would make a good partnership with them. And I think that we can move forward with bringing something about with maybe turning them into an ally instead of this pressure to make them a foe. What do you think?
I absolutely agree with your perspective, Deborah. What Iran has been saying and doing for the last really 40 years is, Iran is a substantial country. As I recall, their population is like 70 million or in that neighborhood. It's a huge landmass. I mean, this is a big country with an ancient heritage. They have been continuously a continuous government, more or less, for about 700 years. Nobody has conquered Iran in that period of time. They used to be called Persia, and proud people, a unique standalone culture. Culturally, they're unique relative to the people around them. They do not consider themselves Arabs, for example, and although it's a very Muslim country, and what they have been saying all these years is, we've got Israel with nuclear weapons. We've got Saudi Arabia with more money than God and a huge American-funded military and an American, provided, sold to them military, along with the UAE and others in the region, they're saying. And we have to be able to defend ourselves. And so the way that Iran has developed to defend themselves initially was what's called asymmetric warfare. In other words, through Hezbollah, they would plant their people in Lebanon or in Israel or whatever, and kind of fund what we refer to as a terrorist network in order to say, if you attack us, we can flip the switch and turn these people on, and you guys are going to see terrorist attacks like you never in your life imagined. And they have, openly threatened that to the United States as well. And the problem, and then, about 10 years ago, maybe 15 years ago, they said, well, we can. Everybody wants us to do away with that, dial back, and this is a hyper simplified explanation, by the way, but everybody wants us to dial back on that. So we're going to do what Israel did. We're going to create a nuclear weapon. And of course, everybody in the world freaked out, and we got the Iran nuclear deal, but they still have these connections with Hezbollah, and that's the major stumbling block. And frankly, I think that a Gorbachev-Reagan kind of de-escalation is possible if the United States was, because what we've said all along is disarm Hezbollah and stop, your asymmetrical warfare presence in these other countries, and we can treat you like, at least like, a fully honorable and full member, of the community of nations kind of thing. And Iran has said, no, we're not willing to give that up until we know that you're not going to attack us. And I think that there's a middle ground in there. I think that there's an opportunity for rapprochement. And I think that both sides are exhausted. And I think this change, this 40-year political cycle change that I'm talking about, that we're seeing here in the United States, we're seeing this in the UK as well. We're seeing this in many other countries. Now, there's also a rise of right-wing nationalism that's happening, but I think that the progressive movement is sweeping the world, and frankly, I think it's sweeping Iran as well. I mean, I don't know if you saw the pictures of the Grand Ayatollah Khomeini and Pope Francis, but the Ayatollah looks like he's on his last legs. I mean, that, talk about boomers fading. I mean, that generation is on the verge of going, and I think, like Bonnie Sauter, for example, the guy who ran for president in 1980, in August of 1980, he won the presidency of Iran with 74% of the vote on a platform of releasing the hostages to the United States. And then, of course, when he called up Jimmy Carter, when he finally became president in August of 1980, he called up President Carter and said, I want to release the hostages. Carter would say, great, let's work this out. And so he goes to the Ayatollah and he says, let's release the hostages. And the Ayatollah says, you can't do that. We cut a deal with the Reagan campaign. And, and Bonnie Sauter, the president of Iran, writes about this in the Christian Science Monitor. And I've linked to that many times over the years. It's still up. It's still there, his article in the Christian Science Monitor, where he says, I was told that we've got this deal with the Reagan campaign because we need American-made weapons. And Reagan will give them to us and Carter won't. And that's, and that's how it played out. So all this stuff has to be resolved and cleaned up. But I think you're on to something, Deborah, and I'm very happy that you called and shared that with us. Thank you. Randall in Minneapolis. Hey, Randall, what's up?
Hi, Tom. I'm so excited. I just can't hide it.
By what?
Oh, well, you and I, we go back to Kennedy, and you know much more about the intricacies of that. But I'm looking forward to Biden letting those papers finally out. I think it's time, yeah. And that'll clean up a lot of things that have been undercover between Kennedy and now. And I think it all started with Kennedy. And now, finally, I'm seeing the pendulum fly the other way. I'm seeing the scales of justice come to equality. It's just a fantastic, fabulous time for me to see the fruition. Obama, I thought Obama gave them all the rope in the world to hang themselves, and he did. And here we are. They're hanging themselves on a daily basis. It's just a beautiful thing.
Yeah, you got Ron Johnson going on Newsmax yesterday, basically again saying, the insurrectionists were not violent and maybe it was Antifa. I don't think anybody outside of a small band of right-wing crackpots, zealots, and religious crazies who make up a good chunk of the whole Q thing now. I think that's the only people who are buying it. I don't think Republicans are buying it anymore. I don't think Americans are buying it anymore. Thank you for the call. Kurt in Madison, Wisconsin. Hey, Kurt, what's up?
Good day, Tom. I've been a long-time listener, and I want to make a comment on something. I know it's a far shot, maybe even impossible, but you've referred it back several times over the years to our founders about they didn't want parties. The Republicans
Correct.
Are so good at brainwashing people to tie words, in this case a group liberal or Democrats, to target words that people that don't even understand what they are. It's like socialism or, they yell communism. So I thought that it would be best to dissolve the titles of the parties because it's much more difficult to point a finger in broad brush and say that that group is a socialist as opposed to individuals saying they're socialists. And that way it forced the politicians to run more on what they're telling their voters that they will get done. And I think this is a huge problem with our democracy.
I get what you're saying, Kurt. You're asking both political parties to essentially unbrand themselves, to lose their political identities. And that's not going to happen. But I think what is happening is that, there are those of us, people like you and me who literally for 40 years have been telling everybody Reaganism and Republican policies are a scam, they're a con, they're a grift, and our Republican voting friends or conservative, neighbors and relatives have been saying, no, small government is actually a good thing, and lower taxes is going to help the economy, and deregulation, helps corporate profits, which means that they'll hire more people and pay better wages. And now, I think after the Trump presidency in particular, everybody, except again this small fringe of crazies, pretty much everybody else gets that it's a con job. These guys have been conning America since Reagan, and they still are. And now, to your point, Kurt, now what you have is that the American people are starting to actually look at what they do, not what they say, and to see the hollowness of those kind of small government slogans. I heard one of these guys on NPR this morning. It was like, really? You're going to trot that out again? We'll be right back.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
Well, I really do believe we're seeing the end of the Reagan era, and a new day is dawning. I honest to God believe that. Nobody has called yet to tell me I'm crazy. That's interesting. And welcome back. John in Los Angeles. Hey, John, what's up?
Hey, Tom, I want to reflect. We had a quick conversation last week, and I got to disagree with you, and I got history on my side. If they don't take care of Trump and the people that were behind the overthrow of the government, they're going to take over the House, they're going to take over the Senate, and it's all over. And I want to recommend a great book for you, Spirit of Laws, Montesquieu and Rousseau. And let me just read something real quick. A state may alter in two different ways, either by the amendments or by the corruption of the Constitution. If it has preserved its principles and the Constitution changes, this is owing to its amendment. If upon changing the Constitution, its principles are lost, this is because it has been corrupted. And once that happens, that's how Rome fell, and we're right next.
Yeah, who were you quoting, John?
That was Montesquieu. It's called Spirit of the Laws, and it's all about there's three different forms of governments. There's
Montesquieu was the guy. I never knew how to pronounce his name because it's spelled like it's Montesquieu, which is how I always say it in my head.
Montesquiue, and then Rousseau writes in the back of the book. But it's called Spirit of Laws. It's unbelievable. And
I'm familiar with it. And in fact, I mean, Montesquieu was the guy who came up with the a tripartite government. Jefferson was just like in love with Montesquieu. He constantly recommended that people read Montesquieu, and because of that, and he had a huge influence on the founding of the Constitution. And it's a great quote. I mean, I could have used that as an epigraph, in one the little quote that goes on the front page of my book on American oligarchy. It's a good one. It's a very good one.
What I love about the man is he came from wealth, but his family made him live with an impoverished family to humble him. So he knows what he's talking about, And then he turned out. I mean, he's fascinating. I'm in love with this book. I can't put it down. But anyway, Tom, thanks for doing what you do. And now
is that the book that Montesquieu wrote, like in the mid 1700s, right?
1400s, I believe. Or maybe he wrote it in the 1700s. No, I believe
it might have been the 1600s, the 17th century.
But,
wow. Okay, I'm gonna have to look up my Montesquieu. I know about him from reading all of Jefferson's letters and notes and stuff. He was one of his top people, but I didn't know that. John, thank you for the call. Johnny in Phelan, California. Hey, Johnny, what's up?
Hi, thanks, Tom. Very optimistic program this morning. Lately, I've been looking at the numbers of the non-voters and the swing voters, and it looks like the non-voters have the swing voters outnumbered approximately 90 million to 10 million. It's probably difficult to pin those numbers down. But it seems like the Democrats have spent the last 40 years moving to the center of the road every time the Republicans pull the road a little bit to the right, going after those swing voters. And why don't they throw some red meat to the non-voters and bring them into the fold? It seems like low-hanging fruit.
I think that's what Joe Biden did last night, Johnny.
Yeah, I've been wanting to call you for like several months now with this, and maybe I'm too late. Let's hope you're, like I say, great optimism in your show today. Wanted your thoughts on that issue.
Did you watch his speech last night?
I've heard parts of it on KPFK this morning.
Oh, it is so worth watching the entire speech. I'm sure it lives on YouTube where you can easily see it at no charge. But it was one of the best presidential addresses I have ever seen, and I've watched a hell of a lot of them. I remember presidential addresses going back to Eisenhower. So that was great. Yeah. Johnny, thank you for the call. I am optimistic. And it's not just because it's a beautiful sunny day here in Portland. 49 minutes past the hour. You can help America return to democracy by telling friends and family how to listen to this and other great progressive programs. Tag You're It. Hey, we just put a new video up for supporters of our program over at ThomHartmann.com. And it's about what would have happened if back in 1941, when we were attacked by the Japanese at Pearl Harbor, what would have happened if Franklin Roosevelt had said, well, Hawaii didn't vote for me, and it's only 2,404 dead people. I mean, that's not so many, right? What's the big deal? Or what would have happened if my dad, who, joined the Army to go fight in World War II, if my dad had said, well, it's only 2,400 people, and I live in Michigan, and they're way over in Hawaii. They're never going to get to Michigan. That's the poison that is spreading in America right now, that we really need to take on. And so anyhow, that's the essence of this, the new video that we just put up. You can find it over at ThomHartmann.com, and I think you'll find it fascinating. Thank you for your support. Back to Anything Goes Friday, and a reminder that at the top of the next hour, it's going to be Congressman Ro Khanna taking your calls for the hour, the vice chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, and one of the really great progressive legislators out there. Dennis in Bergenfield, New Jersey. Hey, Dennis, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom, I have an economics question for you. If the price of goods in an economy declines, or if the price of goods becomes cheaper, would you expect to see more consumer spending in the economy, which would boost GDP? Would you expect to see more consumer spending if prices got cheaper?
That was the theory that was advanced back in the 80s for the neoliberal trade policies. Was, if we move our factories overseas so we can make goods for a lower price and so we can import stuff cheaper, or if we just allow for the importation of stuff made with essentially slave labor back in the 80s out of China or Vietnam or Malaysia, that is going to stimulate the economy all by itself because prices on consumer goods are going to drop. And instead what happened was the Walton family that owns Walmart, which is where an awful lot of that stuff showed up at the beginning, is now worth over $100 billion. And they still pay their work. Well, I guess they're paying their workers around $15 an hour now. They've finally kind of gotten with the program, I believe. I could be wrong, but they're still fighting unions and anything else. So it's a nice theory, Dennis, and it's been around for 40 years, but I've never seen it actually play out in practice. It's kind of the essence of supply side economics. Am I missing something?
Right. So basically, what they do is they either move the company overseas or they They lower the taxes for the companies, but the companies don't actually lower the prices. The CEOs and the shareholders, they basically just
that's who are the principal beneficiaries of it. In some areas, we actually do get cheaper stuff. But for example, I've gone through 4 toasters now in the last 6 years. It used to be, in fact, Louise used to have a toaster that was her grandmother's, I think, or maybe it was my grandmother's. I don't remember, but it was like literally 30 years. The boat that we bought when we lived in Washington D.C., was made in 1986, and it had the original washing machine, refrigerator, and dryer. They were all kind of built in. You had to tear the boat apart to get them out. They were still working just fine. They were 40 years old, but the stuff you buy nowadays, for the cheap made in China stuff, I mean, it's impossible. I've gone through 2 air fryers in the last 2 years. Right. It's like they just break, right? So I would love to see stuff made in America. I would be willing to pay a little bit more for something that's going to last, 20 years instead of 2 years. But in any case, to your point, this argument that we need cheap goods because it's going to help the economy has turned out to be BS. And the reality is cheap goods help the CEO class, and that's about it. Thank you for the call, Dennis. Sharon in Minneapolis. Hey, Sharon, what's up?
Hi, Thom. I just wanted to first do a quote by Paul Wellstone, the late, great Paul Wellstone. And he had a saying, everybody does well when everybody does well.
Yes.
And it makes a lot of sense, simply because you give somebody $15 an hour. We don't have a lot of kids working in minimum wage jobs. There are people who are older and people who are on Social Security, and you've got a much higher grade person in there. They're overqualified for the job in most cases.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, absolutely. And the minimum wage workforce is no longer teenagers like it was in the 60s. It's almost, I forget the percentages, but my recollection is it's in the 70 to 80% range is people over 30, actually. And a lot of people are working multiple minimum wage jobs. Sharon, your point is brilliant, and it's a great quote from Wellstone, and it kind of amplifies that story that I've told a number of times about watching TV, and I forget what country I was in, but I was watching Bloomberg, I believe it was, out of Singapore one night in the middle of the night, and they were interviewing this German businessman, this very wealthy German businessman, and the American reporter who was interviewing him said, "How much do you pay in income taxes?" He was like, "I think 54%. And he was like, "Oh, how can you stand that?" And the guy was like, "Nah, it's no big deal." And 3 times this young American kept coming back to, "How can you deal with paying such huge taxes? This has got to be, you got to be really upset. You got to want to be a revolution." And finally, this businessman, there's like this long 10-second pause, and the guy kind of leans forward and looks this kid in the eye and says, because when the last time when the kid says, how can you put up with taxes like that? And the guy leans forward and says, he said, "I don't mind paying those taxes. I don't want to be a rich man in a poor country." And that's what you're talking about, Sharon, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. And most of the jobs, most of the good jobs have been outsourced. And a lot of people that need to come back to minimum wage jobs are those highly trained people.
Yep, you're absolutely right. And a lot of the what used to be good jobs, I mean, the last contract that I believe it was the UAW was able to negotiate with GM is a two-tiered contract where the old timers, are getting 20, 30, 40 bucks an hour, whatever it may be, and the new people coming in are coming in at 15 bucks an hour. I think it was even 14, 20 as I recall. So, it's like we need to not just bring the jobs back, we need to bring the unions back and give them some bargaining power. Yeah, there you go. Sharon, thank you for the call. It's great to hear from you. Coming up next, Congressman Ro Khanna taking your calls for the hour. We're going to do a progressive town hall for the next hour. He'll be taking your calls on, whatever's on your mind. And then the third hour of the program, of course, we'll just get back to Anything Goes Friday, whatever's on your mind. So stick around. Congressman Khanna is up next.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
These companies support the Thom Hartmann Program. They are Gabi.com. Gabi takes the pain out of shopping for insurance. More info at Gabi.com/Tom. Teeth, Smarter Pet Dental Help. More info at teethhealth.com, code Tom. HelloFresh, delivering fresh ingredients and mouthwatering recipes. More info at hellofresh.com, code Tom. Bowl and Branch, crafted for the common good. More information at bowlandbranch.com, code Tom. ExpressVPN, the VPN that just works. More info at expressvpn.com/Tom. And CB Distillery, CBD for sleeping. More info at cbdistillery.com, code Tom.
We've got great news. A group of free speech donors have gotten together and joined with Andrew in San Diego to double your donation today only, up to $5,000. So whatever you give up to $5,000 will be doubled today, will be matched. It's great news. It's the last day of the Grow Free Speech TV Challenge. And this group of frontline donors, frontline funders, have joined Andrew in San Diego to sweeten the deal. Tracy in New York, Steve in Virginia, John and Diane in Colorado are standing by to match any donation today made up to $5,000. That means if you're a loyal, longtime donor, you can double your impact today. And if you've never given before, you can help unlock this week's $5,000 challenge and double your first donation. Andrew, by the way, had said that, if we could just add a couple 300 donors this week, this is how hard it is to get new people in, right? Please help. If you've never donated to Free Speech TV before, we need your help. We need Free Speech TV needs your help. It is so vital. Free Speech TV is such an important part of the media landscape. Probably the majority of calls that you hear on my show every day are coming from Free Speech TV viewers, certainly half of them. Free Speech TV has a huge audience, and sadly, most people who watch Free Speech TV, probably 98%, and those kind of numbers, by the way, hold for other nonprofit media, sadly, never contribute to the program, never contribute to the network, rather. And we need your help. Free Speech TV needs your help. This has been, as I mentioned yesterday, it's been a really tough year for charities right across the board. And I got an email just about an hour ago from a nonprofit that I've given money to in the past. It's an economic policy group that does really good in-depth studies. And they said that the last 12 months have been the worst in the 15, 16 years that they've been in the business of doing this work. And of course, it's because everybody was just pouring everything they had into trying to save democracy from this crazed orange man that we had in the White House. And his merry band of Trumpsters and crazed Republicans. And I totally get that. I was one of those people who was sending money in to help get Joe Biden elected and to help some of the Democratic candidates and to help some of the some of the groups like Stacey Abrams' group, Fair Fight and things. And those needs are still there, sadly. And there's another election coming next year, and that's going to start in probably 6-8 months. You're going to start seeing that crank up. But what it has done is it has just sucked so much money out of the donation sphere, as it were, that Free Speech TV has been really behind for the last year, and we're really behind right now. So I'm asking you, if you get value from this program, if the things that I say, if the work that Louise and I do, and Sean and Nate and Chase, and there's a bunch of us here collectively who work on this show every day, and if the work that we do is of value to you, you don't need to send a penny to us. We'll keep doing this and doing what we're doing, but if you want to continue watching it, Free Speech TV needs to stay in business. We need to keep this network going. We need to grow this network, in fact. So, your contribution today is doubled. If you're a new donor, you can help us unlock that $5,000 from Andrew. And the best thing you can do, in addition to making a donation today, is say, oh, and by the way, every month take $3 off my, credit card, $5, $8, $12, whatever, what might be a cup of coffee, right? Or a burger, whatever, if you eat burgers every week. But, help out, please, because those regular monthly contributions really help Free Speech TV. With a $20 gift, you have your choice of the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker or the Free Speech TV Wildflower Seed Pack. With a $50 gift, you have your choice of the Free Speech TV webcam cover or the new Free Speech TV tote bag. With a $75 gift, you get the Thom Hartmann mug, the official Thom Hartmann Program mug, or the Free Speech TV, the official Free Speech TV hat. With $100, you can get 2 Free Speech TV face masks, which are great to double mask over, a regular surgical mask or N95 mask. So that it looks nice and works better. With a $120 gift, there's the Grow Social Change box, the Wildflower Seed Pack, the Windowsill Herb Garden, the new tote bag, the sunglasses, or the Ask Me About Free Speech TV t-shirt, or my newest book, The Hidden History of American Oligarchy, Reclaiming Our Democracy from the Rich, basically, is the subtitle. And autographed by the author, by the way. I signed a bunch of book plates yesterday and shipped them off to Free Speech TV for these. With a $240 gift, there's the virtual meet and greet where we all meet on a Zoom call, and it's typically, half a dozen to a dozen people. And we do one every month, or the Free Speech TV book set, my book on monopolies, my book on oligarchy. With a $360 gift, there's the University Spring box with the bumper stickers, the seeds, the herb garden, the tote bag, the hat, the sunglasses, and the oligarchy book. And with $1,000, get in line to come to Portland and hang out with us in our studio. Bottom line, though, we need your help, and we need it now. So please call right now, 877-378-8669. Make your contribution and sign up for a regular monthly gift. Thank you.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
And welcome back. On the line with us is Congressman Ro Khanna, Vice Chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, represents the 17th District of California in the U.S. House of Representatives. Khanna, KHANNA.house.gov is his website. You can tweet him at Rep, as in Representative Rep Ro Khanna. And Congressman Khanna, welcome back. I'm curious your thoughts on everything that's happened. My previous hour, my rant was in essence, and I wrote an op-ed about this over at HartmannReport.com today. that it appears to me that these 40 and 50-year political cycles that are noted by people from Kondracki on down, that the cycle is turning, that Americans are recovering from Reaganomics and saying, okay, we get it. This has been a scam for 40 years. We don't want it anymore. And that the entire nation is moving back toward, something like the New Deal or the Great Society in terms of our perspective on what government should do and where we're at and where we should go. I'm curious your thoughts on that and anything else that's, up this week or in general. Congressman?
I would agree with you that there's been a rejection of the I would agree with you, a rejection of the Reagan framework, but there hasn't been necessarily is an embrace yet of the New Deal. I mean, the American Rescue Act that we passed was terrific in terms of providing child tax allowance, in terms of providing aid to states and local governments, but it was not it didn't have the minimum wage increase. It didn't have some of the structural changes. So I think they've said, okay, we're not going to have Reaganomics, which is just tax cuts and gearing these packages to the very, very wealthy. But we're also not yet embracing the kind of structural reform that we need. That needs to be the next step. There's hope that we can do that.
Yeah, Congressman, we really need you to use your phone for the audio.
I think this is excellent. Let me just have redo that and just be on the phone until we figure this out. Yeah.
I mean, we can use the computer for video, but if you could just pick up your telephone and talk to us on the phone, the audio. That's why we always try to separate those things so the audio can be
that makes sense.
A little better. Yeah. We'll, time will tell if we're at the New Deal, I suppose. Is there anything you wanted to specifically talk about, or shall we start picking up phone calls here? Anything you wanted to share with people about this?
The American Rescue Act was a pretty big deal, and the child allowance, which is $3,000 per child, though temporary. I mean, once it's in the code, if we can make that permanent, that's basically Social Security for children. I mean, it's every child born in America is going to get $3,000 a year for food and clothing. And when you look at the expansion of the earned income tax credit, we look at that 70% of that package is going to go to working class and middle class families. A total reversal, as you put it, of Reaganomics, where these packages under Trump, 60, 70, 80% were going to corporations and business owners. So we have a lot to celebrate. The question is, can we make some of these changes permanent? And then beyond the checks, can we have structural change?
Great. So let's pick up some phone calls here. Jeremiah in Coalport, Pennsylvania. You are on the air with Congressman Khanna.
Hi, Congressman. I was wondering if you could get on the same page with your fellow Democrats, and every time you mention the COVID relief package, say which Republicans voted against, the $1,400 checks, which Republicans voted against, because had you all voted against the $1,200 checks, which had corporate goodies that the Republicans wanted, they would be telling the American people that you voted against giving them $1,200 checks.
You're absolutely right. I appreciate that. And I tried to do that when I was on Wolf Blitzer a couple of nights ago and saying, well, what part is Kevin McCarthy against? I suggested his tactic is to throw in the word socialism after every 4 words into every sentence. But, does he oppose the $1,400 checks? Does he oppose the $3,000 checks to children? Is he opposed to the money to get vaccines in every American's arm? But I like your suggestion that we should say $1,400 checks, which Republicans oppose, which is factual, true, and drives it home. I mean, I was talking to the speaker the other day, and she said, the Republicans will be the first ones out at ribbon cuttings celebrating the money that's going to the cities and their districts. And they have this hypocritical attitude where they block things in Congress. They send those fundraising emails out to their base, and then in their district they show up claiming credit, and we need to make sure they don't get away with that.
Yeah, we saw Senator Wicker from Mississippi, I believe it is, tweeting out to his constituents about how this was going to help restaurants in Mississippi, as if he was behind it when he had trash talked it and voted against it. It's really breathtaking.
And the other thing is, the Democrats need to actually toot our own horn and talk about what we've done. I mean, I think there's this false modesty. You can't be modest in politics. You have to do good things and then communicate it. So this morning I had an op-ed in my local paper talking about how my county is going to get $300 million from this, both of my counties I represent, and laying out exactly what each city in my district is going to get. And I think the Republicans, unfortunately, are better at propaganda or claiming credit for what they do when they don't do anything. We get the substance right, and then we don't talk about it enough, and that's equally important.
Justin in Summit Hill, Pennsylvania. You're on the air with Congressman Khanna.
Hi, Congressman Khanna. I've been looking and paying attention to, like, Manchin's aspects and different things like that, and Boebert and Loeffler, who left. I was wondering if you think it would be decent to embolden the emoluments clause and make it applicable to representatives, senators, and the executive.
Interesting, Justin. So making the emoluments clause applicable to Congress,
right.
Is that?
Yeah, that's what he's suggesting.
I think it should be. I agree with you that there's no reason that someone in the Congress or Senate should profit of their official work. Now, in Gator, I don't think there are that many egregious cases of that, but maybe there are, and certainly that should be prohibited and illegal, and you should be prosecuted if you're using your public office to enrich yourself.
Zach in North Hollywood, California. You're on the air with Congressman Khanna.
Morning, guys. So good to speak with you again, Ro. You know, my wife, Kathy's really smart, and she's really scared and worried about our country and the obstruction of the vote. Her question is, why can't reconciliation be used to pass H.R. 1 and gut the filibuster?
Zach, I think we definitely need to remove the filibuster. That's the only way that we can pass H.R. 1. The question is, are we going to have the votes in the Senate to remove the filibuster? Now, Senator Manchin has been constructive in saying that at least require the talking filibuster. So that would make it harder to filibuster most things. But I think that unless we get the White House saying that they're ready to remove the filibuster, we're not going to get much done. Minimum wage increase. Some of us, I pushed, as some of you may know, I wrote a letter with 23 other members of Congress urging Vice President Harris to overturn the parliamentarian. They said they didn't want to do that. Well, what is the alternative? If you want to get 60 votes in the Senate to raise the wage, forget 15, which we want, even if to raise it to $12. Romney wants you to adopt E-Verify, a poison pill, which basically would mean that those who are undocumented would still be in the United States. We're not going to deport them, but would have even less bargaining power and would further depress wages. So that's not going to be a starter. So the way to get minimum wage increase, the way to get it voting rights requires eliminating the filibuster.
We'll be right back with more of your calls for Congressman Ro Khanna in just a moment. Stick around. And welcome back. I don't know, Congressman, I've got your phone on my board here so that we can take audio from your phone. I don't know if you can just pick it up and start talking into it, and Sean can pot down the audio from your computer. Is that possible?
Sure. And we're trying to get on to the video. Is that better?
Yeah, that's perfect. You can be on video holding your phone. That's how Bernie did it for years.
Okay, you don't mind that.
Pocan does it. No, we want that, actually. And it's okay to have a phone by your ear when you're on the air. So let's continue picking up phone calls here from our Free Speech TV viewers. One of your constituents and regular callers here, Joe in Cupertino, California. You are on the air with your congressman.
Representative Khanna, I was watching your speech on the 13, 18, or 19 bill pass, it was very eloquent, speaking of the needs of the children. I have two, and I appreciate all that you've done. My question is, well, I'm just wondering what you know about the potential of relocating some of the unserved the children at the border. I think we have an opportunity to bring them here, and if we can at least be Americans and take care of them like we should, maybe you can give me some information. I'm just waiting to hear when they're supposed to arrive, because I've heard that this is imminent. Do you know?
The children coming to Moffett Field in our district is a issue that we're looking into. I mean, the Department of Homeland Security has said that they need spaces to house these children. And now the challenge has been that we don't have in Congress enough resources to make sure that the children are being properly cared for at these facilities, at the refugee resettlement facilities, and that there's enough effort to connect them with families, because many of them have some family in the United States. So I've been in touch with the Department of Homeland Security and have told them if they do use our district as a site to keep these children in Moffett Field, I want to be kept closely apprised of what they're going to be doing, what the conditions are, what resources they need, and we need to make sure that those children are dealt with the utmost humane care.
Great. William in Long Beach, Washington, you're on the air with Congressman Khanna.
Hi, Congressman Khanna. It's great to finally talk to you. Does the abuse in ICE detention center prevent migrants and immigrant communities from reaching out to law enforcement regarding the abuse of them by mafia, cartel, and syndicate organizations? Do the narco-fascists use the ICE detention centers as a boogeyman for undocumented communities? What does law enforcement have to do to regain the trust of undocumented communities? Do you think that sort of hopelessness is a tool for recruitment for these organizations? Thank you.
Great questions, William.
William, so is the question William's asking that are people who are engaged in drug trafficking using minor children to try to come across the border? Is that?
I think he's asking if fear of abuse by ICE is causing people to shy away from reporting to American law enforcement when they're the victims of crimes or when the cartels are trying to recruit them. Well,
William, you're absolutely correct on that, and it's one of the actual basis for the laws, the federalism of sanctuary cities, which the Republicans often distort, and that is to say that if people were afraid of reporting, then we wouldn't have cooperation with law enforcement, and you now have that happening with ICE because of draconian policies, and that reform will actually, I think, help us get greater compliance and control over the border.
Amen. Let's hope so. It just makes so much sense. We'll be right back with your calls for Representative Ro Khanna. The hidden history of the war on voting tells how the GOP has been stealing elections for decades and will again this year unless we stop them. So people wonder, why militias all of a sudden? How is it that all kinds of Americans are showing up with assault weapons in the Capitol building trying to assassinate the Vice President of the United States and the Speaker of the House of Representatives and stop the counting of the presidential votes, the Electoral College votes? Where did this come from? You know, the last time we saw an armed uprising against the federal government in the United States was 1861. It was the Confederacy. Is this a Confederacy rising again? Well, yeah, there is a huge white supremacist element to it. In fact, I'd say it's one of the primary animating impulses. But what really got these things going, these militias going, was the Heller decision written by the opinion written by Antonin Scalia and published on June 26, 2008. And it has crazy language in it, basically begging for militias. I share it with you in a special video over at thomhartmann.com. Check it out. Welcome back. Congressman Ro Khanna, Vice Chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, taking your calls for the hour. And let's see here, Jeff in San Francisco. Jeff, you are on the air with Representative Khanna.
Yeah, I was wondering if there's a possibility that, you and maybe 5 other ones, Bowman and the squad, the next bill that comes up, say you're not going to sign it unless you put minimum wage, Medicare for all, and some other, caveat on there. We need some home runs. These are too many little bit singles, to use a sports analogy. And I think we really need to use the power we have. Elections have consequences. Why can't we, use the power of, 4 or 5, and then it's not going to get through the Senate, but could we at least try that one time?
And maybe statehood for D.C.
I hear you, and I appreciate that. Let me suggest what happened in this bill. If you remember, the original bill was at $1 trillion, which is what Susan Collins and others were talking about. And the progressives made it very clear that was not acceptable, and that any movement below $1.9 trillion would not be something that would get the House progressive support. The progressives also made it clear to the Speaker that if $15 isn't in the House version, we wouldn't be able to pass it. The progressives made it clear to the Senate that if there was any lowering of checks in the threshold, we would oppose it. Now, we lost on the $15 minimum wage in the Senate. I mean, I want to be clear on that. But we won a lot also leading up to that final moment. The press covered the moderate senators in the last couple concessions, but those are minor compared to the entire frame being progressive. All of that is to say that we are going to push now for $15 either at the National Defense Authorization, which I'm trying to see if we can attach, or in the next reconciliation. We went so far as writing a letter to Senator Vice President Harris to try to get her to overturn the parliamentary. We're going to continue to push. But don't think that the progressives aren't willing to push or fight. It's just a question of how far do you draw the line, because you don't want to tank the entire process or delay checks getting to people for months. But we're absolutely planning to continue the fight on the 15 wage in the next pieces of legislation.
Janine in Fort Myers, Florida. You're on the air with Representative Khanna.
Hi. Thanks, gentlemen, for taking my call. I'm just wondering, why don't Democrats demand a recall election of Governor Greg Abbott in Texas, whose policies have hurt millions of Texans, like Republicans did with Gray Davies in California?
That's a great point, Janine. I think I'm all for it. I don't know if you can. I don't know Texas law well enough, but if there's a recall provision, I definitely think that that's a justified recall.
Kelly in Divide, Colorado. You're on the air with Congressman Khanna.
Hey, thanks. Hey, Congressman, I am wondering, when you're negotiating with Republicans on various aspects of a bill, and they want some changes that Democrats agree to make, but no Republicans vote on the bill, no Republicans vote for that, can't you just go back and strip out what Republicans voted and changed in the bill and say, hey, if you're not going to vote for this, we're taking your stuff back out? Thanks a lot.
Kelly, you can, but then you need to vote and have the votes to pass it. And a lot of times, some of the things that the Republicans add in are also things that some of the moderate Democrats want. So I don't think that the bill we passed in reconciliation has anything that just Republicans want but no Democrats want. I think it was an effort of Schumer to figure out how does he get to 51 votes, and Pelosi to figure out how does she get to the 218 votes in the House.
Jonathan in Portland, Oregon. You're on the air with Rep. Khanna.
Hi. So I wanted to know what, if anything, Congress might be doing to protect local pharmacies and encourage them to spearhead the vaccine rollout. They are infinitely more effective than big chains. They're, especially in North Dakota and West Virginia, they're always being crushed by the big chains. There's this myth that the big chains are better, but in fact, in Maine and Oklahoma, the officials pulled the plug on their vaccine rollout and got local pharmacies to do it. It's the local pharmacies, and they're also a better model for democracy and for business in general.
Jonathan, that's a brilliant point. The American Rescue Plan, this is why it gives the funding to the counties and the cities and the states for vaccine distribution. And if the cities or states feel that they can contract with a local pharmacy for getting the shots into people. They have the flexibility to do that, and so it's really an issue that people can take up with their city and state governments.
Congressman, we just have 20 seconds. When do you expect that money to start arriving in these cities and states?
Well, the president, as you know, signed it yesterday, and I hope and expect that it'll start hitting next week, and that people will start getting their checks in direct deposit within 10 days. And so the one thing that objectively is that this president has been very competent in getting things done and has surrounded himself with competent people. So that's the hope.
Yeah. Thank God. What a change, huh? It's amazing. Congressman Ro Khanna is with us for the hour, our National Progressive Town Hall meeting, taking your calls. Khanna, K-H-A-N-N-A, Khanna.house.gov. Rep Ro Khanna on Twitter.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
It's the Thom Hartmann Program, where we dare to ask, is Walmart a person? And we dare to say no. We'll be back with your calls for Representative Khanna right after this. Hey, we've got great news. A group of free speech donors have gotten together and joined with Andrew in San Diego to double your donation today only, up to $5,000. So whatever you give up to $5,000 will be doubled today, will be matched. It's great news. It's the last day of the Grow Free Speech TV Challenge. And this group of frontline donors, frontline funders, have joined Andrew in San Diego to sweeten the deal. Tracy in New York, Steve in Virginia, John and Diane in Colorado are standing by to match any donation today made up to $5,000. That means if you're a loyal, longtime donor, you can double your impact today. And if you've never given before, you can help unlock this week's $5,000 challenge and double your first donation. Andrew, by the way, had said that, if we could just add 300 donors this week, this is how hard it is to get new people in, right? Please help. If you've never donated to Free Speech TV before, we need your help. We need Free Speech TV needs your help. It is so vital. Free Speech TV is such an important part of the media landscape. Probably the majority of calls that you hear on my show every day are coming from Free Speech TV viewers, certainly half of them. Free Speech TV has a huge audience, and sadly, most people who watch Free Speech TV, probably 98%, and those kind of numbers, by the way, hold for other nonprofit media, sadly, never contribute to the program, never contribute to the network, rather. And we need your help. Free Speech TV needs your help. This has been, as I mentioned yesterday, it's been a really tough year for charities right across the board. And I got an email just about an hour ago from a nonprofit that I've given money to in the past. It's an economic policy group that does really good in-depth studies. And they said that, the last 12 months have been the worst in the 15, 16 years that they've been in the business of doing this work. And of course, it's because everybody was just pouring everything they had into trying to save democracy from this crazed orange man that we had in the White House. And his merry band of Trumpsters and crazed Republicans. And I totally get that. I was one of those people who was sending money in to help get Joe Biden elected and to help some of the Democratic candidates and to help some of the some of the groups like Stacey Abrams' group, Fair Fight and things. And those needs are still there, sadly. And there's another election coming next year, and that's going to start in probably 6-8 months. You're going to start seeing that crank up. But what it has done is it has just sucked so much money out of the donation sphere, as it were, that Free Speech TV has been really behind for the last year, and we're really behind right now. So I'm asking you, if you get value from this program, if the things that I say, if the work that Louise and I do, and Sean and Nate and Chase, and there's a bunch of us here collectively who work on this show every day, and if the work that we do is of value to you, You don't need to send a penny to us. I mean, we'll keep doing this and doing what we're doing, but if you want to continue watching it, Free Speech TV needs to stay in business. We need to keep this network going. We need to grow this network, in fact. So, your contribution today is doubled. If you're a new donor, you can help us unlock that $5,000 from Andrew. And the best thing you can do, in addition to making a donation today, is say, oh, and by the way, every month take $3 off my, credit card, $5, $8, $12, whatever, what might be a cup of coffee, right? Or a burger, whatever, if you eat burgers every week. But, help out, please, because those regular monthly contributions really help Free Speech TV. With a $20 gift, you have your choice of the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker or the Free Speech TV Wildflower Seed Pack. With a $50 gift, you have your choice of the Free Speech TV webcam cover or the new Free Speech TV tote bag. With a $75 gift, you get the Thom Hartmann mug, the official Thom Hartmann Program mug, or the Free Speech TV, the official Free Speech TV hat. With $100, you can get 2 Free Speech TV face masks, which are great to double mask over, a regular surgical mask or N95 mask, so that it looks nice and works better. With a $120 gift, there's the Grow Social Change box, the Wildflower Seed Pack, the Windowsill Herb Garden, the new tote bag, the sunglasses, or the Ask Me About Free Speech TV t-shirt, or my newest book, The Hidden History of American Oligarchy, Reclaiming Our Democracy from the Rich, basically, is the subtitle. And autographed by the author, by the way. I signed a bunch of book plates yesterday and shipped them off to Free Speech TV for these. With a $240 gift, there's the virtual meet and greet where we all meet on a Zoom call, and it's typically, half a dozen to a dozen people. And we do one every month, or the Free Speech TV book set, my book on monopolies, my book on oligarchy. With a $360 gift, there's the University Spring box with the bumper stickers, the seeds, the herb garden, the tote bag, the hat, the sunglasses, and the oligarchy book. And with $1,000, get in line to come to Portland and hang out with us in our studio. Bottom line, though, we need your help, and we need it now. So please call right now, 877-378-8669. Make your contribution and sign up for a regular monthly gift. Thank you. Hey, my new book is out, The Hidden History of American Oligarchy, Reclaiming Our Democracy from the Ruling Class. Want to know more? The links are all over at thomhartmann.com. So remember back in 2020 when in California, Uber and Lyft were pouring all kinds of money into Prop 22, which basically would allow them to continue claiming that their drivers weren't actually employers of Uber. They were actually contract workers. They were all independent small businesses. And therefore, the company didn't have to pay for unemployment insurance, didn't have to pay for workman's compensation if somebody got injured, didn't have to offer them any health insurance. In fact, basically couldn't even do it. And there's a whole bunch of other benefits that are associated and protections that you actually get, state and federal protections that you get as an employee that you do not have available to you as a contractor. Well, it passed because of millions of dollars from Uber, and now the fallout is happening. Companies across California are starting to fire their workers and telling them, we'll hire you back. I give examples in our new video over at thomhartmann.com. And welcome back. Congressman Khanna, the vice chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus and represents the 17th District of California in the U.S. House, taking your calls for the hour in our nationwide progressive town hall meeting. Daryl in Denville, New Jersey, you are on the air with Rep. Khanna.
Good afternoon. I've heard a lot of talk about requiring civics in K through 12 education. And as I listen to the congressman, it occurs to me that we need more than just civics. We have this misunderstanding in this country, I think voters do, that, that there are no limits to power, that when you're in charge, you can basically do whatever you want, and there are no limits, ethical or otherwise. And it's just not true. And when I hear you discuss why certain things can't be passed through reconciliation. I mean, it sounds reasonable, and I think the country would benefit if we saw more of that on TV and film, etc., and less, Kardashians and other, drivel that we see on television. Even punditry. I would rather see something entertaining that teaches ethics over the punditry that we see, even on stations with which I agree. So that's just my comment, and I guess you could respond to it if you like.
Bring back civics
Daryl,
education.
I agree with you very much. At first, I thought you were going to say the congressman needs more civic education, but I appreciate that you did take a shot at me. But I agree with you that we need to allow people to understand the details of the process and have more conversations like we have on Hartmann. And we frankly need to do more conversations in getting past social reality bubbles. I went on Ben Shapiro's podcast, and we had a civil, frankly, exchange of the minimum wage, and it was controversial at first. Why are you going on? And then I said, look, if you're not going to try even to reach people across these bubbles, then what hope is there for democracy? So I fundamentally believe in, as you put it, education, but also looking for opportunities to have the rational exchange of ideas.
Mary in Las Vegas, you're on the air with Representative Khanna.
Good morning, gentlemen. I was wondering if there's any chance of getting DeJoy out of the post office.
We're working on it. Thank you for the question. I mean, the challenge is it's not Congress's call; it's the call of the Board of Governors. And so President Biden is going to get appointments on a new board, and we can continue to hold DeJoy accountable. And then ultimately, it's the board's call in terms of getting someone new. But there clearly have been huge violations. I mean, put aside the election, there are other enormous violations that need to be looked into.
Tim in St. Cloud, Minnesota, you're on the air with Representative Khanna.
Thank you very much for taking my call, gentlemen. Rep. Khanna, I want to ask you a question. So what happens to the millions upon millions of people who are out there on the streets without a bank account? How do they get their stimulus check? How does that happen?
Tim, it's a very good question. They are able to come and work with their congressional office to be able to get it, and they can work with through either a Social Security number or a tax ID number, and the Treasury Department will work to figure out where they can cash that check. But it is a challenge. And there are provisions, and what I would say in that situation is go to your member of Congress's office, and they can help you.
Ryan in Modesto, California, you're on the air with Representative Khanna.
Hey, Congressman, I wanted to see if you guys would push really hard to get the minimum wage increase into the next piece of must-pass legislation, like the defense bill or something. If I'm not mistaken, the last time it was raised in 2007, it was part of like funding for the Iraq war or something completely unrelated to the minimum wage.
You're absolutely right. It was in the National Defense Authorization Act. I'm on the Armed Services Committee. I'm going to try to put it in the National Defense Authorization Act. Here's the problem, though. They're going to try possibly passing the National Defense Authorization Act with Republican votes. I mean, the fact that you have a Democratic president and that we would still have a $740 billion defense budget is just wrong. I mean, it's over 50% of discretionary spending. So if the budget comes in too high, they may try a strategy where they're trying to pass the budget not with Democratic votes, but with Republican votes. And then if they do that, they won't ever attach a wage increase. So it's really going to be driven by the White House. And there are two questions to ask. One, are they willing to offer a defense budget that could pass with Democratic votes? And two, I know you have Mark Pocan on often. He's been brilliant on looking at strategic cuts in defense to put it instead in job creation in communities. And two, are they willing then to attach a minimum wage increase to a must-pass bill? I'm going to have every effort to see that we can do it.
Cool. Stephen in Oakland, California. Hey, Stephen, you're on the air with Representative Khanna.
Yeah, hi, guys. very much involved in single payer here in the new single payer legislation, excuse me, AB 1400 in California. The Relief Act is really great, except for the billions being shuffled off to the insurance corporations. Regarding that, we're wondering what's happening with this session's version of your 5010, the ACA waiver bill. Are you aware of efforts to pressure Governor Newsom to ask that the Biden administration get a little busy on that?
Steve, thank you for your questions and your activism in Oakland. 2 points. You're absolutely right that one of the problems with the American Recovery Act, though it had a lot of good things, I mean, it extended COBRA payments, subsidized COBRA. COBRA is one of the most inefficient, expensive forms of health care. It's not even the Affordable Care Act, and that money goes directly to health insurance. We were advocating that instead people should have gotten Medicare, who the 15 million who lost private insurance. But Bernie Sanders didn't win the presidency, and we have President Biden, and he didn't run on Medicare expansion, and that's the policy. Now, I agreed with the policy of limiting the ACA to 8.5% of income, and that's a positive. But again, it would have been far cheaper to have people on Medicare. 1/4 the cost, even after the increased subsidies with the ACA. We are going to be reintroducing the State Waiver Act. That would allow for single payers at a state level, and it would give Governor Newsom the opportunity to do it in his state.
Michael in Leesville, Louisiana. You're on the air with Representative Khanna.
Representative, I know you don't have this problem in California, but why can't a federal law against marijuana be removed? Thank you.
Michael, it should be removed. What I would say is that the leader on this issue has been Senator Cory Booker. He, along with Barbara Lee and I, have a bill called the Marijuana Justice Act. It would legalize marijuana, remove it from Schedule C, and as importantly, it would throw out the convictions of so many black and brown young individuals who have an arrest record because of minor possession of marijuana. Google it, look it up. It's really a terrific bill that Senator Booker has put forward, and my hope is we can get that passed and get support around it.
Brian there we go. Brian in Middletown, New Jersey. Brian, you're on the air with Representative Khanna.
Thank you for taking my call, guys. Congressman, I have a question for you. You were talking about messaging before, about getting out and making sure people know what the Democrats are accomplishing. The thing I'll say to you is that I think we also have to engage in some counter-messaging, because people have this misperception that the Republican Party is better for the economy when the facts belie that. When I tell people that every Republican president going back to Hoover and probably back to TR has had a recession on their watch, nobody believes me. And the Republicans constantly get away with this idea that vote for us because at the end of the day, we're better for the economy than the Democrats.
Brian, you're absolutely correct, and you're factually correct. When Democrats come into power, usually economic growth improves, the wages go up. You even have the markets do well, and that's because the economy, the American economy, is ultimately driven by consumer demand, and workers and consumers are not two separate entities. So the more money you put in the hands of workers, the better it is for the economy. And we need to make the case that the Democratic Party is not just for fairness, but for growth.
Congressman Ro Khanna is with us for the hour, our National Progressive Town Hall meeting here on the Thom Hartmann Program. Congressman Khanna is the vice chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus. You can find his website at Khanna, KHANNA.house.gov, and you can tweet him at Rep, as in Representative Rep, Ro, R-O, Khanna. We'll be right back with more of your calls in just a moment.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
It's the place where despair is not an option. The Thom Hartmann Program, our National Town Hall meeting with Representative Ro Khanna, continues in just a moment. And welcome back. Jeff in Portland, Oregon. You're on the air with Representative Khanna.
Hey, happy Friday, Tom and Congressman Khanna. Thanks, as always, for the town hall. Congressman Khanna, I agree that this rescue package is going to help a lot of people. But as you say, we need to keep moving forward aggressively and progressively. And one area I want to ask you about, Congressman, is agriculture. You know, Mexico just announced a ban on glyphosate and GMO corn. And I believe the EU already bans over 90 pesticides and herbicides that the EPA still allows here. So as the House sponsor of the Farm Systems Reform Act, how do we break up big ag and the chemical companies' stranglehold on our food supply and start implementing a Green New Deal for farming? And finally, Congressman, do you have any thoughts on the controversy surrounding the latest controversy surrounding Dow Chemicals 1,3-D, also known as Telone? Thank you, Tom and Congressman.
Well, thank you for that, Jeff. I got on the Agriculture Committee so I could have an impact on this. I think it's important to start from first principles. When we're talking about agriculture and farming, we need to be mindful of a lot of the small farmers and the family farmers who are suffering because of big agriculture. I mean, they aren't getting the price that they need. They often aren't even making the costs of what they're producing. And a lot of times these big corporations are in these states and their owners don't even live in the states. And so all of the environmental damage that's taking place with the pesticides or other runoffs are not impacting their own community. So what is the solution? One, of course, we need to make sure that the corporations are held liable for the pollution, not the contract farmers. And that's why the Farm Reform Act changes it and puts the liability on the corporations. We need to make sure that there's antitrust protection so that they can't take advantage of the contractor farmers. And then we need to pay farmers for environmentally sustainable practices for regenerative agriculture. In short, I think you can have a pro-farmer policy that can get popular support and isn't tilted to big ag.
Grant in Everett, Washington, you're on the air with Representative Khanna. Grant? I am not hearing Grant.
Congressman,
there he is.
Hello, yes. I was wondering what is being put forth to help protect our environment and natural resources. All this devastation in the West due to wildfires. How can we put our energy towards that?
Well, Grant, I appreciate that. As you may know, I'm chairing the Environment Subcommittee of the Oversight Committee of this Congress, and we've got a great committee with AOC and Rashida Tlaib and Cori Bush. And one of the first hearings that we're going to have is on Texas and what happened there in terms of the energy grid and how do we weatherize and climatize our infrastructure. And we're also going to be looking at the wildfires that you raised and how we make sure that, in my view, that PG&E should be a public utility so that they have the investments that would have put the lines underground or would have made them safe and would not have led to the kind of fires that we saw. All of these things are things we're going to be investigating and then proposing action that can mitigate the impact.
Yeah, this seems so important that utilities, instead of siphoning money out for investors, be there for the communities. I'm very hopeful you can pull this off.
But correctly, Tom. I mean, it is really that simple. Are you going to give more shareholder profits, or are you going to make the investment in basic safety for your community?
Yeah, amen. We'll be right back with more of your calls for Congressman Ro Khanna in our National Town Hall meeting here, a Progressive Town Hall meeting here on the Thom Hartmann Program. Stick around. We'll be right back. You can find his website at Khanna, KHANNA.house.gov. You can tweet him and say hi at Rep. Ro Khanna. The Hartmann Report is a free daily podcast 7 days a week, and you can find our entire 3-hour podcast over at ThomHartmann.com. So we've got a new video up over at ThomHartmann.com for folks who are supporting the program about how big pharma, the big pharmaceutical companies, might be the lever that the healthcare industry uses to destroy Medicare for all, or even a public option as we move into and toward the Biden administration. And how do they do that? Well, they're spending $30 billion a year on advertising. The United States is the only country in the world, the only developed country in the world, that allows drug companies to advertise with very, very few restrictions on television. Only one other country, New Zealand, allows any kind of drug advertising on television. But in the United States, the door is largely wide open. And as a result, all of the television networks are hooked on money from big pharma and big health, as it were. You can check out all the details over at thomhartmann.com with our new video for the supporters of our program. Thank you. Khanna, Vice Chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, taking your calls for the hour. And Spence in Clarksburg, West Virginia, you are on the air with Congressman Khanna.
Hey, thank you, Freedom Speech, and we really enjoy your program there. I have a question. I wonder if, as President of the Senate, also Nancy Pelosi, could they change the seating in the room to be alphabetical order instead of everybody sitting in each section? I think it would do a lot to make America united, to make us feel like the old days, and when we try to talk with each other and try to get our country back on track. God bless y'all. Listen to your answer. Have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you for that. You know, senator seats are assigned, and they aren't assigned based on party. The House, you're supposed to be able to sit anywhere you want, and actually there is a lot of walking to the other side of the aisle. It's not quite as polarized on the House floor as people make it seem on television. But the challenge to me, in my view, is not sort of a challenge of space and how we imagine space and seating. The challenge is you literally have a Republican Party that is unwilling to support policies that many Republicans support, such as an increase in minimum wage, such as the stimulus checks for COVID relief, such as gun background safety checks. And so I think there's a fundamental challenge when you have Republicans unwilling to support even policies that Republican voters support, how we make progress. And I don't think just shuffling the spacing or seating assignment will fix that.
Teresa in Palau, Hawaii, if I'm saying that right. Teresa?
It's Pahoa, Hawaii.
Thank you.
Yeah. My question to the representative is, how and why is there a sidebar of garnishment on the stimulus, receiving a stimulus check for any sort of outstanding private debt? Why was that put in? I'll take your answer off the air. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Teresa, in all honesty, I'm not aware of that garnishment provision, if there was something added to that. Tom, are you aware? If not, I can have our staff look into it and get back to you.
Yeah, I am completely unfamiliar with that. I'm sorry. Sean just said in my ear that it was on the news yesterday, but I've missed it too. Joe in Parker, Colorado, you are on the air with Representative Khanna.
Representative Khanna, I was a union member for 38 years. I had due process rights. I had permanent status after 2 years. My union negotiated working conditions. I have a defined benefit retirement. I would urge you to sponsor legislation to eliminate right to work and strengthen the union movement in America.
Roll back Taft-Hartley.
Joe, absolutely. I agree with you. I'm on those bills. Mark Pocan, who is one of the leaders on these issues, has a workplace democracy bill, which would do that. The PRO Act, which we just passed, would do that. And, in terms of one of the good provisions of the American Recovery Act was helping pensions that could have gone under if it weren't for the support that we actually got. And it's going to save a lot of pensions which were in trouble because of the economy.
Mike in Fontana, California, you're on the air with Rep. Khanna.
Yes, Connery, I'm just wondering, do you think that this recall for our governor and our attorney general is going to go through?
Mike, I don't. In fact, I saw polling today suggesting that over 50% are not going to vote to recall Gavin Newsom. I think only 30-some% were. It's just such a waste of time, such a waste of resources, such a waste of energy at a time where we ought to be assisting the governor in dealing with the pandemic. We're distracting the energy and wasting the resources of the state. That's what's unfortunate.
Rich in Sedro-Woolley, Washington. We got about a minute and a half to the end of the hour. Rich, you're on the air with Representative Khanna.
Gentlemen, whereas tax policy is as much about influencing behavior as it is collecting revenue, I'd like to hear you two spitball some ideas on how we can discourage corporatist monopoly and encourage worker co-ops through tax policy.
Rich, that's probably going to require more thought than a 30-second answer. But I do think that it needs to be, a combination of antitrust law so that we incentivize smaller businesses. But maybe you can incentivize on capital gains taxing structure based on employee ownership, so that the more employees that have ownership, maybe you could have favorable capital gains treatment. I do agree with you that we should incentivize how we have broader equity for people in the economy.
Congressman, in the last 30 seconds, what should we be looking for and where should we be directing our personal activism over the next week or two?
Tom, I think it's so important that we not give up this $15 fight. I mean, a $15 wage means $7 more per hour, $7.50 more per hour. It's about $50-some more a day, means about $250 more a week, $1,000 a month. That's real money, and that's the type of structural change that we need.
Amen. Congressman, thanks so much for being with us so often and doing such a great job. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
I always enjoyed it. I'm glad we got the video to work. I like this better, so we'll do this more often now with video.
Yeah, me too. It's great. Yeah, the folks watching it really appreciate it. Congressman Khanna, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll be back with Anything Goes Friday.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
These companies support the Thom Hartmann Program. They are Gabi.com. Gabi takes the pain out of shopping for insurance. More info at Gabi.com/Tom. Teeth, Smarter Pet Dental Help. More info at teethhealth.com, code Tom. HelloFresh, delivering fresh ingredients and mouthwatering recipes. More info at hellofresh.com, code Tom. Bowl and Branch, crafted for the common good. More information at bowlandbranch.com, code Tom. ExpressVPN, the VPN that just works. More info at expressvpn.com/Tom. And CB Distillery, CBD for sleeping. More info at cbdistillery.com, code Tom.
Got great news. A group of free speech donors have gotten together and joined with Andrew in San Diego to double your donation today only, up to $5,000. So whatever you give up to $5,000 will be doubled today, will be matched. It's great news. It's the last day of the Grow Free Speech TV Challenge. And this group of frontline donors, frontline funders, have joined Andrew in San Diego to sweeten the deal. Tracy in New York, Steve in Virginia, John and Diane in Colorado are standing by to match any donation today made up to $5,000. That means if you're a loyal, long-time donor, you can double your impact today. And if you've never given before, you can help unlock this week's $5,000 challenge and double your first donation. Andrew, by the way, had said that, if we could just add 300 donors this week, this is how hard it is to get new people in, right? Please help. If you've never donated to Free Speech TV before, we need your help. We need Free Speech TV needs your help. It is so vital. Free Speech TV is such an important part of the media landscape. Probably the majority of calls that you hear on my show every day are coming from Free Speech TV viewers, certainly half of them. Free Speech TV has a huge audience, and sadly, most people who watch Free Speech TV, probably 98%, and those kind of numbers, by the way, hold for other nonprofit media, sadly, never contribute to the program, never contribute to the network, rather. And we need your help. Free Speech TV needs your help. This has been, as I mentioned yesterday, it's been a really tough year for charities right across the board. And I got an email just about an hour ago from a nonprofit that I've given money to in the past. It's an economic policy group that does really good in-depth studies. And they said that the last 12 months have been the worst in the 15, 16 years that they've been in the business of doing this work. And of course, it's because everybody was just pouring everything they had into trying to save democracy from this crazed orange man that we had in the White House. And his merry band of Trumpsters and crazed Republicans. And I totally get that. I was one of those people who was sending money in to help get Joe Biden elected and to help some of the Democratic candidates and to help some of the some of the groups like Stacey Abrams' group, Fair Fight and things. And those needs are still there, sadly. And there's another election coming next year, and that's going to start in probably 6-8 months. You're going to start seeing that crank up. But what it has done is it has just sucked so much money out of the donation sphere, as it were, that Free Speech TV has been really behind for the last year, and we're really behind right now. So I'm asking you, if you get value from this program, if the things that I say, if the work that Louise and I do, and Sean and Nate and Chase, and there's a bunch of us here collectively who work on this show every day, and if the work that we do is of value to you, you don't need to send a penny to us. We'll keep doing this and doing what we're doing, but if you want to continue watching it, Free Speech TV needs to stay in business. We need to keep this network going. We need to grow this network, in fact. So, your contribution today is doubled. If you're a new donor, you can help us unlock that $5,000 from Andrew. And the best thing you can do, in addition to making a donation today, is say, oh, and by the way, every month take $3 off my credit card, $5, $8, $12, whatever, what might be a cup of coffee, right? Or a burger, whatever, if you eat burgers every week. But, help out, please, because those regular monthly contributions really help Free Speech TV. With a $20 gift, you have your choice of the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker or the Free Speech TV Wildflower Seed Pack. With a $50 gift, you have your choice of the Free Speech TV webcam cover or the new Free Speech TV tote bag. With a $75 gift, you get the Thom Hartmann mug, the official Thom Hartmann Program mug, or the Free Speech TV, the official Free Speech TV hat. With $100, you can get 2 Free Speech TV face masks, which are great to double mask over, a regular surgical mask or N95 mask. So that it looks nice and works better. With a $120 gift, there's the Grow Social Change box, the Wildflower Seed Pack, the Windowsill Herb Garden, the new tote bag, the sunglasses, or the Ask Me About Free Speech TV t-shirt, or my newest book, The Hidden History of American Oligarchy, Reclaiming Our Democracy from the Rich, basically, is the subtitle. And autographed by the author, by the way. I signed a bunch of book plates yesterday and shipped them off to Free Speech TV for these. With a $240 gift, there's the virtual meet and greet where we all meet on a Zoom call, and it's typically, half a dozen to a dozen people. And we do one every month, or the Free Speech TV book set, my book on monopolies, my book on oligarchy. With a $360 gift, there's the University Spring box with the bumper stickers, the seeds, the herb garden, the tote bag, the hat, the sunglasses, and the oligarchy book. And with $1,000, get in line to come to Portland and hang out with us in our studio. Bottom line, though, we need your help, and we need it now. So please call right now, 877-378-8669. Make your contribution and sign up for a regular monthly gift. Thank you.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
And welcome back to Anything Goes Friday here on the Thom Hartmann Program. Just in the news, George Floyd's family just got a $27 million settlement from the city of Minneapolis. The jury selection in that trial continues with some very, very bizarre questions. But the good news in terms of the probability of Mr. Chauvin, Derek Chauvin, I think is his name, being held responsible for the murder of George Floyd is that the prosecution has successfully introduced a third-degree murder charge as well. Sometimes it's really hard to convict not just a police officer but anybody of first-degree murder, premeditated murder, where somebody thought, okay, I'm going to kill this person, now I'm going to take this action, and then they take the action and then they kill them. In particular, because this knee on the neck thing is widespread practice among police departments around the United States. And so they figured, okay, if the jury says, well, he didn't intend to kill him, he just intended to incapacitate him, and he kept his knee on the neck a little too long, he wasn't paying attention at the time, or, if that's the kind of argument that they're going to make, then the backup is, okay, then convict him of third-degree murder, which is, like if you're texting while driving or you're drunk while driving and you kill somebody, you still go to prison for a long, long, long time. And so I think that's, the prosecution is actually celebrating that, that they've got that in, and the defense is very upset about it. So, we'll see. We'll see where it goes. But just to keep you up to date on that. And what else is going on. I also think that it's fascinating that progressives took over the Nevada Democratic Party. These are specifically people who got together back when Bernie was running for president during the primary, and organized themselves. And this is the news. It was over at Raw Story by Bob Brigham. On March 6th, the coalition of progressive candidates backed by the local chapter of the Democratic Socialists of America took over the leadership of the Nevada Democratic Party, sweeping all 5 party leadership positions in an election that evening. The incumbents had prepared for the loss, having recently moved $450,000 out of the party's coffers and into the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee's account. It's a little sleazy. Several key leaders, this is a quote, several key leaders within the Clark County Democratic Party, including the chairwoman and a handful of executive board committee heads, have resigned as progressive leadership within the county and state parties has swelled in recent months. This is from the Las Vegas Review-Journal. Quote, the resignations come after months of infighting between progressives and, quote, establishment Democrats over policy platforms. So, guess what? This is what happens when people like you and me get active in local politics. Progressives got active in local politics in Nevada. They said, we're not gonna put up with corporate Dems anymore, and we're going to start advancing genuine progressive policy positions that are supported by a majority of the people, and certainly a large majority of Democrats. And the people who, the old guard who had been there for years and years and years just said, okay, that's it, we're out of here. And the progressives are like, cool, see you later. Although they took $450,000 with them. But, hey, it's a start. And I think that this, again, to my point that I opened the show with, I think that the Reagan era came to a close this week. I really believe 2, 3, 4 years down the road, we're going to look back 5, 6 years down the road, we're going to look back at this week and say, this is when it happened, with the passage of this very large piece of legislation that rights so many wrongs beyond just helping people with COVID. And yes, the Republicans are hysterical about it. I was on Michael Harrison's podcast, Talkers Magazine, yesterday with a bunch of right-wingers, and they're all like, how dare he call it a COVID relief bill when there's stuff that doesn't have to do with COVID in there? Helping out black farmers? How can you do that? And my response is, yeah, this, we are righting past wrongs. And it is a good thing. And, suck it up. Get used to it, snowflakes. I mean, it's like there's a new day dawning. Or a new day here, I guess, is how you would say it. So, anyhow, let's pick up your phone calls and see what you all have to say about that or whatever you want to talk about. Tammy in Laurinburg, North Carolina. Am I saying that right, Tammy?
Yes.
Thank you.
Hi, how are
You're
you?
on the air.
How are you?
I'm great, but I'll get better, Tammy. How about you?
I'm good. I just have a question. I am part of the Lumbee tribe in North Carolina, and we were up for federal recognition, and Pelosi was the only one that turned it down. And I was wondering, we're the biggest Lumbee tribe. We're the biggest tribe. I went to Washington on January 6th because I was upset about it. That's the reason I went. But I was just wondering, other tribes have gotten their recognition, and we've been fighting for ours for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just wondering if you had any comment on that.
I think
knew
that
anything.
I when I lived in Vermont, I know the Abenaki, who have been there for 10,000 years, were fighting for recognition, and the judge turned them down, saying that they had all been, the entire tribe had been eliminated in the 1920s when there was this mass sterilization program of Native American women. And he stood there. It was amazing. He had half a dozen or a dozen Abenakis in the room, right, in his courtroom, and he ruled that the Abenaki no longer existed in Vermont. That was 20 years ago. I don't know what's the status of the Abenaki in Vermont since then. I think they may have been granted tribal recognition. I don't know about your tribe, Tammy, but I am supportive of those principles, and I hope you can make it happen. Tammy, thank you for the call. Les in Brethren, Michigan. Hey, Les, what's up?
Yeah, Tom, I have a question for you about the insurrection. They had a investigation going, and then a couple weeks ago they just dropped it. They were going to call in the defense secretary and the secretary of the army, and
who is the they you're talking about?
Pardon?
Who's the they who's having this investigation
the
that you mentioned?
House of Representatives. They were going to call in.
They are still going to call those people in.
Well, that was
I thought it was going to happen this week.
I thought they just dropped it.
No, I believe that it was supposed to happen this week, and it got postponed because of the bill, because of the vote on the COVID relief. But I could be wrong, Les. I'm making an assumption here, and that's not always the wisest thing to do. It would have been a great question for Congressman Khanna. I'm sorry I didn't get you.
I know. I called, but he was already gone. So I just posed the question to you.
Yeah.
And maybe you.
I
knew
honestly
something
don't
that
know.
I didn't.
I haven't seen anything about that in the news. I do know that there are numerous congressional committees that are looking into this. The FBI is looking into it. Yesterday, Merrick Garland, thank God, finally got made Attorney General, and he had his first, right after the ceremony where he took over the Justice Department, he had a meeting with Christopher Wray, who was Trump's appointee as head of the FBI, although it appears that Chris Wray may be a reasonable guy, but you'll recall, one of the members of Congress, when they were talking with him just a week or so ago, was excoriating him, just went after him for refusing to give Congress information while Trump was president. He was loyal to Trump. So I have
He kind of switched gears, I think.
I think so. I have some real misgivings about him. We'll see how this all shakes out, and ultimately it's up to President Biden. But Les, thank you for the call. I'm sorry I don't have a crisp, clear answer for you. I'll try to find out over the weekend and inform you on Monday. And of course, maybe next week. Maybe next week we'll have another congressperson on and we can just ask them. But I'll see what I can find out. It's 15 minutes past the hour on Anything Goes Friday here on the Thom Hartmann Program. Stick around.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Speaking the truth, the multinational corporations would really rather you didn't know all about. Thom Hartmann. We'll be right back. And welcome back. And let's see here, Steve in Gresham, Oregon. Hey, Steve, what's on your mind today?
One moment.
Hi, Tom.
Just down the road from me. Hi, Steve. What's on your mind?
Hey, I was thinking that maybe we could expand the House of Representatives to about 1,200 to 1,500 members to get some more diversity in there.
I think that would be unwieldy, but I think taking it from 435 to around 600 or 700, which is about the size of the Indian Parliament, I believe, may be a better idea.
Here's my thinking of it, is that it started out with one member for every 33,000 people when the Congress.
But at that time, the
founded.
population of the United States was like 4 million people.
Right, but it was easier to get in contact with them, or actually more people would actually know who their congressman was. And at the time they capped the number at 435. It was about one member for every 200,000 people in this country.
Yeah, that was early in the 20th century.
And so if we went to that, it would be about 12. Right now, we're about one for every 600 and something thousand people, and that's almost impossible for even 10% of the people in that area to meet a congressman during a year. But I think 1,500 would work. You'd get a lot more diversity. You'd actually get Green Party members. I mean, if we had 3 times as many. If we split every congressional district into thirds, think of some of the areas like in Eugene and on the California coast. We'd have lots of Green Party members actually have seats in Congress. Libertarians would actually have seats in Congress.
I get it. I get it. And I'm all in favor of expanding Congress, and I'm also all in favor of ultimately ending up with something that resembles a parliamentary system, proportional representation. And I think the way to get there is through instant runoff voting. Steve, thank you. That's a good one. Ed in Belfair, Washington. Hey, Ed, what's up?
Hello, Tom. I was hoping to change my topic to the filibuster, if I may.
Go for it.
I was listening to the PBS NewsHour with Judy Woodward the other night, and Mitch McConnell was on there, and she was kind of questioning him about the filibuster and about how he got his judges appointed. Now, when they negotiate that, will Senator Schumer sit down with him and say, okay, no more filibustering on judges? So,
they already did that.
Okay, so they've already done that. So
McConnell got rid of it on Supreme Court judges so that he could get Kavanaugh on the bench.
Correct. So, in other words, any other ones, they can't just pick everything, all these bills that are going to be coming through from the House to the Senate, all those can be filibustered. So they're still in the process of negotiating how they do the filibuster. So they
there's 2 theories on how to do this, Ed. One is to make the filibuster harder, which is the one I favor, have a Jimmy Stewart filibuster. The other is to carve out more exceptions to the filibuster. Right now there's an exception for budget bills, which is called reconciliation. There's also an exception for national security legislation, which would be like the defense budget. There needs to be an exception for bills that directly impact democracy, like H.R. 1. And that's another thing that they're discussing. That's going to be up to the Senate, though. That's largely going to be up to Chuck Schumer. Ed, thanks for the call. The Hidden History of Monopoly tells how Robert Bork, that guy from the Reagan era, transformed corporate America and destroyed the American dream. There's been a debate going on for 40 years about whether Reagan's, what George Herbert Walker Bush during the primaries in 1980 called voodoo economics, trickle-down economics, Reaganomics, whether it works or not. Does it work to stimulate the economy and help the lot of the average working person to cut taxes on rich people, like Donald Trump did, in 2017. $1.5 trillion tax cut for the rich. Does that help the economy? Well, the London School of Economics, the most prestigious economics institution in the world, just did the most comprehensive study on this, including 20 OECD nations, 20 of the richest nations in the world, including the United States and the United Kingdom, which is where this insanity began back in the early 1980s with Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan. and the results are shocking. We lay the whole thing out in a new video that's over at thomhartmann.com for people who support our program. And welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you, 21 minutes past the hour. Norma in Montgomery, Alabama. Norma, day before yesterday, I was sitting at my desk working on the next book, and I paused for a minute and was looking out at the window, and suddenly you popped into my head. And I thought, I haven't heard from Norma in quite a while. I hope she's okay, because and I'm so glad to, and here you are calling. I'm so glad you got through, because I'm very concerned. I mean, you've got COVID down there in the deep south, just ripping through that area with governors who don't seem to be doing anything about it. I hope you're well.
Well, I am well, and thank you for caring. I sent you a message yesterday that I now want you to sign all 5 of my History of books.
Oh, if you emailed it to me, I didn't get it. Try again, and I'll check my spam folder.
Yeah, but I put it on the pod. I was watching on the iPad yesterday.
Just drop me a note.
But anyway, thank you for caring about me, and I am much better since my accident of last October. It's just that all of the catch-up and the physical therapy.
Yeah, been there, done that.
And it's always scheduled smack dab in the middle of the day. But anyway, when you were talking about the end of Reaganomics, I think that we are going to have to be extremely careful. I know this wasn't what I signed up for to talk about, but I think that you're right that we're seeing an end of it, but it is going to be a fight. When you have a corporate Congress who has no intention of letting go of power or purse strings, they will do whatever it takes. You look at Katie Porter. She's been kicked off the Finance Committee, and now she's in a fight just to retain her seat in the election for next year. We have to support people like Katie Porter across the country. She's going to need a lot of help to maintain that seat. And so I'm hoping everybody out there is listening will think about helping Katie Porter one way or another, even if it's just a $5 money order to her post office box. You know, a lot of $5 adds up. But
I'm with you, and maybe Sean can reach out to her specifically and invite her on the program. And,
please.
Try and raise her profile a little here.
I think that removing her from the Finance Committee was a warning and an act of revenge, and that's my personal opinion. But the reason I called was I wanted to talk about poverty and violence. When I was watching Gandhi one night and the movie, on Turner Classic movie, and he was talking about how enforced poverty creates violence, and he did not want a violent overthrow. We don't need violence here either. But when you live in poverty, it is depressing. It is a mental problem, and that leads to a health problem because you're starving to death, and you can't feed your children, and you become angry. And so these people, there are many posts out there on Facebook about these 8 people Democrats who voted no for the minimum wage increase. They're worth something like $43 million, and they don't want to have to pay any kind of increase. The bill that Bernie had increased it $1 a year for 4 or 5 years, and that gives people time to adjust. But if you cannot even respect the people who are making money for you, you don't even deserve to have them working for you. People should be treated with respect. Instead, the house across the street from me belongs to a guy from China. They pay rent. Those American wage dollars leave the United States every month to support a foreign corporation. There's a building downtown, a historic building. It was bought by Japan. We have land that belongs to China, to Germany, and anybody can come here and buy the land out from under us because our people can't even afford to save up enough money to buy a home. And this is destroying America from the inside out.
Yeah, I agree. There's a fascinating study. The headline is Political Correlates of Violent Death Rates in the U.S. 1900 to 2010, longitudinal and cross-sectional analysis. And this is from the abstract. Quote, the party of the president was significantly associated with annual changes in suicide and homicide rates, unemployment rates, and GDP, with higher violent death and unemployment increases being associated with Republican presidencies and higher GDP being associated with Democratic presidencies. Suicide and homicide rates were higher in states that voted for the Republican candidate for president than in states that voted for the Democratic candidate. It's pretty. It's like the BBC study that found that that the suicides always went up during conservative administrations and they went down during progressive administrations in the UK over a 100-year period.
Well, Tom, here in Alabama, where we don't have money for education, we are going to be building 3 new privately owned prisons. Our prisons are in horrible condition and they must be replaced, but they should not be privately owned where we have to pay someone to take care of prisoners, because that is a profit margin that we cannot meet here in Alabama, particularly not when we have. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Well, I was going to say, plus that produces lobbyists who lobby for longer prison sentences and harsher punishment for crimes.
Yes, of course. And then, too, we just our state house just voted down passing the lottery and bringing in poker tables. Yeah. Where are our priorities here? No money for education. And Tom, any woman who did not have a salary last year did not pay into Social Security or Medicare either, and there was no matching money for her.
Yeah, that's a tough one, too. Norma, it's great to hear from you, and I'm so glad you're well. I got to run. Thank you very much.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
We will be right back, coming up on 28 minutes past the hour in about 30 seconds. And we'll pick up more of your calls on the other side of this break on Anything Goes Friday. Hey, we've got great news. A group of free speech donors have gotten together and joined with Andrew in San Diego to double your donation today only, up to $5,000. So whatever you give up to $5,000 will be doubled today, will be matched. It's great news. It's the last day of the Grow Free Speech TV Challenge. And this group of frontline donors, frontline funders, have joined Andrew in San Diego to sweeten the deal. Tracy in New York, Steve in Virginia, John and Diane in Colorado are standing by to match any donation today made up to $5,000. That means if you're a loyal, longtime donor, you can double your impact today. And if you've never given before, you can help unlock this week's $5,000 challenge and double your first donation. Andrew, by the way, had said that, if we could just add 300 donors this week, this is how hard it is to get new people in, right? Please help. If you've never donated to Free Speech TV before, we need your help. We need Free Speech TV needs your help. It is so vital. Free Speech TV is such an important part of the media landscape. Probably the majority of calls that you hear on my show every day are coming from Free Speech TV viewers, certainly half of them. Free Speech TV has a huge audience, and sadly, most people who watch Free Speech TV, probably 98%, and those kind of numbers, by the way, hold for other nonprofit media, sadly, never contribute to the program, never contribute to the network, rather. And we need your help. Free Speech TV needs your help. This has been, as I mentioned yesterday, it's been a really tough year for charities right across the board. And I got an email just about an hour ago from a nonprofit that I've given money to in the past. It's an economic policy group that does really good in-depth studies. And they said that, the last 12 months have been the worst in the 15, 16 years that they've been in the business of doing this work. And of course, it's because everybody was just pouring everything they had into trying to save democracy from this crazed orange man that we had in the White House. And his merry band of Trumpsters and crazed Republicans. And I totally get that. I was one of those people who was sending money in to help get Joe Biden elected and to help some of the Democratic candidates and to help some of the some of the groups like Stacey Abrams' group, Fair Fight and things. And those needs are still there, sadly. And there's another election coming next year, and that's going to start in probably 6-8 months. You're going to start seeing that crank up. But what it has done is it has just sucked so much money out of the donation sphere, as it were, that Free Speech TV has been really behind for the last year, and we're really behind right now. So I'm asking you, if you get value from this program, if the things that I say, if the work that Louise and I do, and Sean and Nate and Chase, and, there's a bunch of us here collectively who work on this show every day, and if the work that we do is of value to you, you don't need to send a penny to us. We'll keep doing this and doing what we're doing, but if you want to continue watching it, Free Speech TV needs to stay in business. We need to keep this network going. We need to grow this network, in fact. So, your contribution today is doubled. If you're a new donor, you can help us unlock that $5,000 from Andrew. And the best thing you can do, in addition to making a donation today, is say, oh, and by the way, every month take $3 off my, credit card, $5, $8, $12, whatever, what might be a cup of coffee, right? Or a burger, whatever, if you eat burgers every week. But, help out, please, because those regular monthly contributions really help Free Speech TV. With a $20 gift, you have your choice of the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker or the Free Speech TV Wildflower Seed Pack. With a $50 gift, you have your choice of the Free Speech TV webcam cover or the new Free Speech TV tote bag. With a $75 gift, you get the Thom Hartmann mug, the official Thom Hartmann Program mug, or the Free Speech TV, the official Free Speech TV hat. With $100, you can get 2 Free Speech TV face masks, which are great to double mask over, a regular surgical mask or N95 mask, so that it looks nice and works better. With a $120 gift, there's the Grow Social Change box, the Wildflower Seed Pack, the Windowsill Herb Garden, the new tote bag, the sunglasses, or the Ask Me About Free Speech TV t-shirt, or my newest book, The Hidden History of American Oligarchy, Reclaiming Our Democracy from the Rich, basically, is the subtitle. And autographed by the author, by the way. I signed a bunch of book plates yesterday and shipped them off to Free Speech TV for these. With a $240 gift, there's the virtual meet and greet where we all meet on a Zoom call, and it's typically, half a dozen to a dozen people. And we do one every month, or the Free Speech TV book set, my book on monopolies, my book on oligarchy. With a $360 gift, there's the University Spring box with the bumper stickers, the seeds, the herb garden, the tote bag, the hat, the sunglasses, and the oligarchy book. And with $1,000, get in line to come to Portland and hang out with us in our studio. Bottom line, though, we need your help, and we need it now. So please call right now, 877-378-8669. Make your contribution and sign up for a regular monthly gift. Thank you. Our 1-hour free podcast recaps our show, and it's available wherever fine podcasts are found. And we have the full 3-hour podcast available over at thomhartmann.com if you want to really support our program. Did you know that there have been 8 federal judges who have been convicted and removed from the federal bench? 15 altogether have been impeached. 8 have been removed from office since the beginning. 3 of them since 1988, including one judge, Thomas Porteous down in Louisiana, who was impeached and removed from office for signing false financial declarations under penalty of perjury, which it turns out it looks like Clarence Thomas did for quite a number of years when he did not disclose, as he is required by law to do, that his wife was taking hundreds of thousands of dollars from the Heritage Foundation. That and his perjury around Anita Hill and others, there were numerous witnesses that didn't even get called, could legitimately spark an impeachment of Clarence Thomas. We got a video about this over at thomhartmann.com for supporters of our program. Check it out. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. Anything Goes Friday. I just the word is in about the response to Joe Biden's speech last night. You heard my if you were listening at the very beginning of the program, I went through a whole rant about how I really believe that we have hit a turning point. This is the end of the era of Reagan. I may be wrong, but I really believe that a couple of years from now, we're going to look back on this week and say, this was the week that everything changed. This was the week that things actually turned. And the fact that kind of an old line, quote, moderate Democrat like Joe Biden has taken these very progressive positions and is enthusiastically promoting them tells me that the entire party is on the verge of major change or has already experienced major change. But, what are the headlines? If you go over to the writing, RIGHTING.com real quickly, the lockdowns weren't worth it. This from the Wall Street Journal. Lockdowns could destroy the economy. Another one, COVID porn, this is from PJ Media. COVID panic porn freaks need to be silenced and shamed. That drooling idiot who's wasting space in the Oval Office read a teleprompter for a bit last night, informing us of the miserable vision his handlers have for pandemic America. There is no beating the virus. The pandemic can be stopped, but the virus will always be lurking out there. Part of the BS narrative the tyrants and this moron asterisk POTUS have been spreading is that the virus will be banished forever. I mean, here's another one. This is from American Thinker. Biden's scary, boring, and bizarre address to the nation. That's their headline. Red State, Biden's totalitarian promises. WorldNet Daily, calling out the lies and errors in Biden's COVID speech. Right. Big league politics. Healthy mom dies 4 days after receiving COVID vaccine. Well, if you're going to vaccinate millions and millions of people, and people die all the time, you're going to have some correlation there, but it's not causation. I can tell you. But this is what's going on. They're trying to discourage people from taking vaccines, to make the situation worse, so that they can say, "Oh, Joe Biden was just as bad as Donald Trump," and it's not going to happen. I'm just telling you, it ain't going to happen. Lisa in Montreal, Canada. Hey, Lisa, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom. How are you? Happy Friday.
I am well. Thank you. Back at you.
Good. No, I was listening when you spoke about the Democrats, what happened to them in Nevada. And I found it interesting because I saw a segment on Rising. And the book Lucky was released maybe a week or a couple of weeks ago. And they spoke specifically about how the corporate Democrats did everything in their power in order to stop Bernie from winning the primary. Everything in their power to have Joe Biden win the primary and then go on to win the presidency. So maybe this has something to do with that. The fact that even the establishment Democrats are so afraid of progressive policies because I think that's the way of the future. I mean, I think
progressive policies. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I think I have friends that I speak with and family in the States, and I think it's the silent majority that's pushing all of this. It's going to get somewhere, and I think both parties, both establishment. I mean, although the Republicans are way off to the right, but this middle mushy middle Democrats, they're afraid.
Yeah, and legitimately so, and that's what we saw in Nevada. And I think that you're right that the establishment really worked against Bernie Sanders, both when he ran against Hillary Clinton and when he ran against Joe Biden.
It's absolutely
but he's now the chairman of the Budget Committee, and he's got tremendous power in the United States Senate, and he has huge moral power.
Oh, that coming, yeah, he's got a lot of power, and I wish him well. Because the tables have to turn, Tom.
Yeah.
Because
Lisa, a quick question, if I may ask you about Canadian politics. Is Trudeau safe and secure, and how, is Canada moving in a more progressive direction?
Yeah, because we just had a big bill here on pharmacology, the pharmaceuticals. And we have a pretty good healthcare system, but Canada wants it to go a little bit more to the left because since we have experienced the pandemic and things like that, especially the fact for pharmaceuticals. And Trudeau just voted, the Liberals voted completely against a pharmacology bill, which he ran on in order to loosen the restrictions on drugs being at a better and more competitive price here in Canada, although it's not bad.
Right.
And the NDP voted for the bill, and Trudeau completely, turned it down. But come to find out that was because there was so much lobbyists behind it. The big pharmaceutical companies came out really strong and completely pushed the nurses and the hospital associations that were for it out of the picture. So, lobby, it's money. It's all about money.
Yeah, I get it. Lisa, I need to move along, but thanks for the update. I really appreciate it. Rich in Indianapolis, Indiana. Hey, Rich, what's up?
Hi, Tom. Thanks so much. I wanted to circle back from last week and give an example of how Fox does a hit piece, and it's specific to what has turned out to be kind of an uproar elsewhere about me saying that it's possible that Governor Cuomo is getting smeared. America Divided, Gretchen Carlson talks about D.C.'s war on women. That was the title in 2018. You may remember that Gretchen Carlson was Roger Ailes' victim of choice. And I was very interested in hearing what Gretchen Carlson had to say about this. Because I figured that she was, coming at this from a genuine and heartfelt perspective on how misogyny of elite is happening, and it was in the title, DC's War on Women. And it was actually not as good as it should have been. It was disingenuous and, quite frankly, opportunistic and cynical, because she used it to reinforce harm to Al Franken as an example, and held up some other points that were troubling, at least. And
I think there's two possible realities here, Rich, and they don't have to be mutually exclusive. They can both exist at the same time. And one is that Cuomo is an SOB, that his dad was, one of these old-time party boss kind of politicians who ruled with an iron fist and kept everybody under his thumb. And Cuomo learned at his knee, and that's the kind of politician he is. That's possible. In fact, that's been always my impression of him. And that people don't want. No, let me just finish this point. And that people don't want that kind of politician anymore representing them. Right. And the other possibility is that Roger Stone, or somebody like Roger Stone, is doing to Cuomo right now the same thing that he did to Eliot Spitzer, the former governor that they got out. They tracked down the information about him with hookers, and boom, he had to resign. And so it could be a hit job, and the guy's an SOB. And the question is, how much of an SOB is he, and has he stepped over lines that are just absolutely politically intolerable? And I don't know the answer to that, but what I do know is that both New York senators, Gillibrand and Schumer, so far have not called for him to step down. And virtually all the elected Democrats in the House of Representatives, led by AOC, are calling for him to step down. So I think he's in a very, very tough position here right now. He's saying, let's let the investigation go forward. I'm inclined to agree with that, just because, if it's possible that there is a smear going on here, it should be exposed. But I'm also inclined to assume that most of the charges against him are probably true. So, we'll see.
How about if you're a successful player of the game in New York, which turns out to be a predator pit? There are these things that we call character flaws that make you a survivor. And I'm not trying to say that it's okay to be bad to women. I am a feminist. I swear to you, I am an anti-racist.
If he's been playing predator, there's no way he's going to survive this. If he's actually been playing predator, and if he was really trying to cover up deaths in nursing homes, there's no way he's going to survive this, and needs to be nailed for it. But thank you, Rich. But on the other hand, if anything is being hyped here, we need to know about it. But it doesn't look good. It doesn't look good. It's 45 minutes past the hour. We'll be right back. It's Anything Goes Friday here on the Thom Hartmann Program. Stick around.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
It is the home of the political revolution. Back with more of your calls in just a moment. And welcome back. Rob in Spokane, Washington. Hey, Rob, what's on your mind today?
Hey, sir. Just wanted to call about the British Royal Circus. And as is typical of these media circuses, I believe it is being used to conceal a crime. I mean, everything that happened is very interesting. But an innocent baby, the grandson of the Queen, has been denied his rightful title and place in the royal family. And the royal family
hang on, Rob.
That endangered the child's life.
Rob, pause.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry,
that
sir.
has not yet happened. That child is not eligible for a title until Charles becomes king, because the titles only go two generations down. So there was a discussion about whether he should be denied a title. We don't know.
Well, but isn't it, as it stands right now, without a change, that he does not have a title, that they've already said that he's not going to get the title?
I could be wrong. I thought that it was not carved in stone, that it was just, the assumption.
The bottom line is that the child was endangered by the royal family cutting off Harry and Meghan. And Tyler Perry had to offer them bodyguards, and I believe that this is a situation that they don't have any excuse for. I think it was an abominable act is the main thing, even if, the technical, and that's the problem. We get tripped up on the technical details. But the fact is that the royal family has discriminated against them because he chose to marry someone that wasn't approved. And that in itself is wrong.
Yeah. I agree, Rob, and I think that what this shows is the absolute corrupt nature of the whole idea of royalty, of a DNA lineage ruling a country. I think it's just wrong. Terry in Seattle. Hey, Terry, what's on your mind today?
Yeah, hi, Tom. I got a question about housing prices. There seems to have been a real surge in that area since the pandemic. And I don't listen to your program every day. Maybe you've covered this topic. I don't know. But anyway, what are your thoughts on that? And I'll take your answer off the phone.
You've been seeing most of the surge in housing prices happening in suburban and outer areas. And it's in part, I think, because living in the city, you're more likely to be exposed to the COVID. I suspect a lot of that is going to self-correct probably 2-3 years down the road, assuming that COVID just becomes endemic like the flu and we just get a shot every year with the newest variants. My guess is that's the way it's going to work out. The other thing that's been fueling the surge in housing prices is low interest rates, and it looks like they're going to keep those. Jerome Powell is still in charge of the Fed. The last time he made a public statement, he said that full steam ahead, we're going to keep with this policy. We'll see if inflation picks up. That will depress housing prices. But whether it's going to depress housing prices in those areas that are outside the city or restore housing prices inside the city, because we're seeing the price of some in-town housing actually going down, depending on the city you're in, of course. I think a lot of this, I think there's two factors at work here, the interest rate thing and that. Plus you've got foreign money buying U.S. real estate, and that has been jacking U.S. real estate prices for the better part of 20 years. And we really need to put a stop to that. We shouldn't, most countries do not allow foreigners to buy land in their countries. We shouldn't either. But it's being bought, as Norma pointed out from Alabama, it's being bought up all across the country and turned into rental property. We'll be right back. Hey, my new book is out. The Hidden History of American Oligarchy, Reclaiming Our Democracy from the Ruling Class. Want to know more? The links are all over at thomhartmann.com. So for our Thom Hartmann Insider videotape that is over, or videotape, YouTube, whatever you want to call it, private video that's available over at thomhartmann.com, I'm talking this week about Donald Trump just completely giving in to Erdogan of Turkey, the president of Turkey, the dictator of Turkey now. And this theory that Jared Kushner okayed the killing, at least the capture, perhaps the killing of Jamal Khashoggi, and to Mohammed bin Salman, and that Erdogan has the tape of it, and that when he called up Donald Trump a couple weeks ago and said, I want you to pull out of Syria and give me those Kurds so I can kill them and take that land, that he did it because Erdogan threatened him. And then Erdogan comes to the United States, a week or two later and gets a whole state dinner thing. Check it all out. It's over at ThomHartmann.com. I think you'll find it fascinating. And welcome back. It's Anything Goes Friday here on the Thom Hartmann Program. Maine in Chicago. Hey, Maine, what's on your mind?
Hey, how you doing, Tom? Yeah, I understand that there was a movie, a program special about Fred Hampton and his rise in the Black Panther Party and stuff like that. Anyway, Fred Hampton, he come from Maywood. Him and I, I'm from Maywood too. And I remember Fred when he was NAACP youth coordinator in Maywood.
Wow.
And from that point, he went to Chicago. This was around 66, 7, and 68 because by 69 he was dead.
That was the year he was assassinated by the police, right?
Right, in December, I believe. Yeah. And so I just wanted to let you know that I had a personal experience with Fred Hampton. And what I wanted to talk about really though is when Reagan said the words trickle down, and when the when the mayor of Chicago says we're going to redline, don't they have to reverse those by saying we will no longer trickle down and we will no longer redline in order for it to become null and void?
Well, redlining was outlawed, redlining being the practice where banks would get together and draw red lines around particular neighborhoods and all agree not to lend anybody money in those neighborhoods. And usually those lines, 99% of the time, those lines corresponded with race. That's been illegal for a couple of decades. There are some substantial suggestions that it's continuing, that it's still going on. But there needs to be more aggressive enforcement of the illegality of redlining. With regard to trickle down, I think that we're seeing this growing movement now across the United States to tax the rich, which is and to give more money to the working class. Raise the minimum wage and things like that. Those are all absolute right-in-your-face repudiations of trickle down. So I'm not sure they need to say the words, Bean, but I think they're doing it. Don't you get that sense?
Well, yeah. I kind of sense that they're doing it, but I would like them to say we're no longer going to trickle down. We're not no longer going to use the trickle down economic standard that we're under, and that I would like to hear the mayor say, like here in Chicago, say redlining will no longer be permitted here in the city of Chicago on the west and south sides, because it's barren. You should see the difference of the city of Chicago. You go up on one of these tall buildings, look you look west and south, and it's barren. There's no sky cranes nowhere. You look north and northwest, and sky cranes all over the place. They're putting up buildings that you can hardly get a piece of paper between them. So
I get it, man, and it's like when Bill Clinton said, the era of big government is over and we're ending welfare as we know it. which were wrong. I mean, but at the time, that was the sentiment. America was in love with Reaganomics, or at least more than 50% of Americans were, and a lot of Democrats were. Now that we look back and we say, that was wrong, that was corrupt, that was, not specifically Clinton, although he had his problems. But I agree with you. I think that they need to be saying these things out loud, and they need to be saying them loud and emphatically. Totally with you. Maine, thank you very much for that. Charles in Hollywood, Florida. Hey, Charles, you have the last minute of the show. What's up?
Okay, well, I'm just wondering if Merrick Garland is going to come in and he's going to do at least something like what the DOJ did under Barack and Eric Holder. And what I mean is when they went into Ferguson, they uncovered a lot of emails and, found racism or whatever. The reason I'm calling them today is because about the corruption in the system. We're letting China dictate to us what's happening in places like Myanmar and the atrocities that this coup has led, where they're killing innocent people in the streets. And I just think it's because American businessmen has gotten into bed, like you said earlier in this week, with a corrupt China that's using communist tactics. So basically, they're winning the Cold War by corrupting our business people with money or with whatever, with power. And basically, we're allowing.
And this, I completely agree, Charles. And thank you. And this is why we need to bring our manufacturing back home. Hey, special thanks to Louise Hartman, Sean Taylor, Nate Atwell, Jamie Holly, Joyce the Hammer Nance, Nigel Peacock, Sue Nethercutt, Patrick Hoyt, Geraldine Halbert, Ron Hartenbaum, Chase Spross, Nicholas Miller, Pat Sweeney, Jabberwocky, and Jay LeBlanc for helping make this program work. And thank you to you for participating, for listening, for sharing the good word. Have a great weekend. Get out there, get active, tag you're it. Politics requires you. Democracy requires you. We'll see you on Monday. I hope you have a wonderful weekend.
You've been listening to Thom Hartmann. For audio and video archives, visit thomhartmann.com.
These companies support the Thom Hartmann Program. They are Gabi.com. Gabi takes the pain out of shopping for insurance. More info at Gabi.com/Tom. Teeth, Smarter Pet Dental Help. More info at teethhealth.com, code Tom. HelloFresh, delivering fresh ingredients and mouthwatering recipes. More info at hellofresh.com, code Tom. Bowl and Branch, crafted for the common good. More information at bowlandbranch.com, code Tom. ExpressVPN, the VPN that just works. More info at expressvpn.com/Tom. And CB Distillery, CBD for sleeping. More info at cbdistillery.com, code Tom.